Okie dokie. So for our backbending class this morning, our peak pose will be mermaid pose. So when we got the back leg bent and we're trying to bring our arms into this position with our toes kind of in the crook of the elbow. So we'll be doing a lot of poses that will resemble those shapes of our peak pose and use a lot of relevant prep poses to help us warm up for back bend. So you'll notice that, and I might discuss it a little bit throughout the class this morning. As always, take it easy, listen to your body, don't force anything, and afterwards we'll have a chat how it all feels. Okay, so we're going to come to our mat now, and if you're using 2 blocks, I'm going to show you the setup with blocks. If you don't have blocks, I will also show you without your blocks. So if you are not using blocks, you will have your legs crossed and you'll lie back with your arms in a cactus position like this. Okay? Even if you have a little pillow or a rolled towel, you can prop it underneath your shoulder blades for a little bit of extra lift. But don't stress about it.
Laura?
Yes?
Would a roller work?
Yeah, you can try with the roller. If you've got one of those long rollers, you can place it like this. So it's going to support your head as well as your ribs. Okay? It does feel nice. As long as the back doesn't get sore or uncomfortable at any point, then take out whatever's underneath you. If you've got the blocks, I'm going to have one block underneath my back, which I'm going to have it running vertically like this, and then my block for my head might be a little bit higher. Can you see that? So I've almost done like a little bit of a T. This one is on its narrow edge, and my ribs and shoulders are going to lie over this bottom block. And then the top block I've lifted a little bit so my head feels nice and supported. With the legs crossed, we'll recline over so the bottom block is supporting my rib cage and going between the shoulder blades. If it's uncomfortable, you just wiggle it a bit higher, okay? And then it's a little bit of a fiddle sometimes, just because you can't see your bottom block, and then you support your head with the other block. Otherwise, you're lying flat, or maybe you've got a little pillow underneath your ribs, and just to assist you to lift your chest. This doesn't matter. We're not going to be here for very long. It just creates a sensation of a passive back bend, so my back muscles are relaxed in this pose. Okay, so we've got our legs crossed, and we'll bring our elbows into a cactus position. Once your arms have found that cactus position, maybe if you're a little bit higher on a support, you'll feel an extra stretch across your chest. And whether your arms are on the floor or hovering in the air, you're going to gently slide your elbows up and down, keeping that cactus shape to feel a nice stretch across the chest. You can do this with your breath. Inhale, gliding the arms up gently. Exhale, gliding the elbows down. Just moving with your breath. Feeling that nice stretch across the shoulders. Maybe you're lying in a little back bend to help lift your chest. At any point, if your back feels uncomfortable, please come off the support. Let's take 2 more deep breaths here. Moving with our arms. And then maybe just holding where you're feeling a good stretch across the chest and into the shoulders. Maybe your arms have raised up a little bit higher. Just take a moment to relax into that stretch. Gently release the arms down to your sides. And if you are on a support, you'll need to just pop yourself up for a moment and move your blocks or your rollers or your cushions out the way. And then we'll all meet lying down on our backs once again and just hug knees to chest. You can take a little rock from side to side, gently massaging your back into the ground, just easing into our class this morning. From here, we're going to come into a figure 4 stretch. So bringing your legs to like a tabletop position. Cross your right ankle over your left thigh. Flexing the right toes up to the ceiling and feel your right thigh opening out to the side. So we've externally rotated that leg. Then you can catch hold of the back of your left leg to deepen the stretch, or if you want a little bit more, you can even hold the front of your left shin. You should be feeling a good stretch through your right bum cheek at this point. Make sure your shoulders and your neck are still relaxed on the ground. Take a few deep breaths here, just settling into that stretch. From here, keep your legs in this position, but bring your arms just gently off to the sides and then twist your legs over to the left. So you're going to twist to the left so that your right sole of foot finds the ground. So you're in a twisted figure 4 stretch. You can bring your arms back into a cactus position if you like, and maybe you want to turn your gaze to look over your right shoulder to deepen that twist. Now you can stay here if this is feeling all right. Otherwise, you can shuffle your left foot more towards the middle of the mat. So it's left your right ankle. And maybe you take your right hand and you find your left foot. It's a little bit of a pretzel shape. Shuffle if you need to. Adjust. Wiggle your hips, wiggle your legs. Maybe you're holding your left foot with your right hand and you're drawing that leg back to feel a very gentle thigh stretch. Otherwise, just stay in your twisted figure 4 and let's take 2 more deep breaths here. Let's gently release and pass back through center in our figure 4. Unwind the legs back to tabletop position. And then we'll do that on the left, crossing left ankle over right thigh, flexing left toes up towards the ceiling. Take hold of the back of your right thigh, or maybe you held the shin on the first side, whichever you did on the right, repeat here on the left. Relax your head and your shoulders back onto the ground. And gently think of pressing your left thigh outwards. So we're externally rotating in the hip joint. And you should feel a good stretch in your left bum cheek. Let's take a few deep breaths here. Next, we'll move this into a twist. So arms out to the side or in cactus position. Twist your legs over towards the right so that your left sole of foot finds the ground. And you've found yourself in a twisted figure 4 stretch. Turn your gaze towards the left, only if that feels comfortable for your neck. And think of keeping the left shoulder on the mat. Maybe feeling a little stretch across the chest there. Now you can stay here, or you can shuffle your right leg back and see if your left hand can take hold of your right foot for a little thigh stretch here. I know this is a bit of a tricky one, so just shuffle your legs as much as you need to if you want to do it, and then you'll find it'll help you to catch hold of that foot. Maybe you're feeling a little stretch across your right thigh now, Let's take 2 more breaths wherever you are. Gently release and roll back to center through your figure 4. Uncross the legs and hug both knees back into the chest. From here, we're going to rock up to child's pose. So holding the legs, you can rock yourself up to seated. Roll over feet and shins if you want, or pop your feet off to the side and come to kneeling. With your knees wide and your big toes together, so you've got a little V shape with your legs, walk your hands forwards and find yourself in child's pose. Here in your child's pose, see how far you can walk your hands forwards, so you're really creating length in the sides of your body. See how long you can extend forwards. When we do back bends, we don't want to sit and dump into our lower back. We want to create space in the spine and really lengthen out of the hips, lengthen through the spine. So create that sensation here. In your child's pose, walk your hands over to the right side, aligning your chest over your right thigh, and until you can feel a good stretch running down the left side of your body. Take a few breaths here in the side stretch. And keep reaching the arms forwards, creating length in the spine. Gently we'll walk back past the center and over to the left side, aligning your chest over your left thigh, reaching forwards with the arms and then releasing the head down. Bringing the hands back to center. Then from here, bend your elbows, bring your palms together in a prayer position, and then you're going to wiggle your elbows forwards and bend your arms to place your hands towards the back of your head. And then once your hands are behind your head, slide your elbows a little bit further forward so you can feel a really good stretch in your triceps, maybe into the armpits. And if it feels really tight, you might want to bend and stretch your arms here. So you can inhale, send your fingertips forwards, and then exhale, bend your elbows, taking the hands behind your head. And if it feels good, you can just flow, bending and stretching, easing into that stretch. Now, keeping your elbows bent, stay here if this feels enough for your shoulders or is a really big stretch. If you'd like to take it a little bit further, leave your right elbow where it is. Extend your left arm out to the side. Turn your thumb down towards the floor. So you've kind of rolled that shoulder inwards. And then bend your left elbow and wiggle your fingers between the shoulders. And maybe, it's not easy, so be gentle. Maybe you clasp hands in a bind behind you. Just increasing the stretch. If that feels too strong today, don't force anything. Maybe you just make the shapes with your arms and your hands don't touch. That's also fine. Or keep hands in prayer in our first position. Gently we release. Both elbows come back to center. Hands in prayer. And then we'll feel that on the right. We're going to extend right arm out to the side. Turn your thumb down towards the floor. Bend your right elbow and wiggle your right hand up between the shoulder blades. Option to clasp your hands. So you're feeling Gomukhasana, cow face arms here in child's pose. And then gently releasing your arms, extending your hands forwards. Take one more stretch here in your child's pose. And then moving up onto hands and knees. Bringing your hands underneath your shoulders, knees stacked underneath your hips. Take a look at your hands. Remember what we discussed last night. Pointer finger pointing forwards and fingers are spreading out from here. We're going to take a few rounds of cat-cow, warming up the spine. So as you inhale, you're going to gaze up gently, arch your spine and lift your chest. Feeling the stretch in the front of the body. And on your exhale, you round your spine, gaze towards your belly button, and think of pushing your hands into the mat and really rounding the spine. Moving with our breath as we inhale, uncurl, gaze up, arch the spine, and gently pull your shoulder blades down your back, lifting the chest. On your exhale, rounding the spine, feeling a good stretch through the back of the body. Moving with our breath as we inhale, gaze up, gentle arch. Exhale to round. Moving with our breath for 2 more rounds. Inhale to gaze up, gentle arch, shoulders away from ears, chest is lifting. Exhale to round, feeling a good stretch through the back and between the shoulder blades. 1 more round as we inhale, lengthen forwards. And exhale to round. Gently uncurling back into a neutral spine position, drawing the shoulders away from ears, making sure that we're not arching or rounding, but you're settled in the center. We'll extend the right leg back, hover the leg and reach it up, similar to what we did last night. But today we're going to bend the right knee. You can point or float that foot, whatever feels good for you, and then squeeze that right leg up nice and high. So you've got like a little scorpion tail leg back there. Now from here, you're going to look forwards like we did last night. Find your drishti. Lean forwards onto your hands. So you've rocked your weight forwards to your hands. And then bend your elbows like a tiny little chaturanga. As you bend your elbows, squeeze your right leg up higher into that scorpion tail. Squeeze your elbows in, keep your chest lifted. Straighten your arms as you push the mat away. Bring your right knee to your nose. And take a big step forwards into a lunge. So you may have stepped past your hands. And then bringing your right knee over your right ankle. Settle here into a low lunge position. Really allow your hips to come down. So you're feeling a big stretch through your left hip, your quads and your hip flexors. Taking a few deep breaths here. So for back bends, we spend a lot of time warming up our shoulders like you felt in child's pose and stretching our hip flexors and thighs like you're doing now in order to stretch the front of the body for back bends. From here, gently bend your back knee, bend your left knee. Good. Try not be on your kneecap ideally. Try stretch that leg back so you're resting more on the top of the thigh so it's not sore. If it is sore, take extra padding if you need. Place your left hand flat on the floor and see if you can twist your chest open towards the right and maybe your right hand catches hold of your left foot into a thigh stretch here. Stretching into quads. If your hand's not quite touching, no problem, just reach your right hand back. Draw your heel to your bum if you've got hold of your back foot. Open your chest and lean your head back. Take 1 more breath here and keep drawing the hips down towards the mat, feeling a big stretch through that back leg. Slowly release. Ground your hands a little bit closer towards you, because remember we've stepped forward, so hands a bit closer underneath shoulders. Kick your right leg straight back, we're still on all fours. Bend your right knee back into scorpion tail. Have your weight on your right hand as you reach your left hand back to hold your right foot. Good. Push off your right hand so your bottom arm is strong and active. Once you've got hold of your left foot, kick your foot into your hand and see how high you can lift your toes up towards the ceiling. Kick up and back. Lean your head back to open your chest. Take one more breath here. Lift those toes. And then slowly release. Come back onto all fours. Good. Let's flow to the other side. Inhale, left leg reaches back. Bending the knee. Little scorpion tail. Now pause here. Really squeeze that leg up towards the ceiling. So still feeling those glutes from last night. Now look forwards. Lean forwards onto your hands. Look forward. Now baby chaturanga with the scorpion tail. Bend your elbows. Open your chest as you bend your elbows. Don't let your shoulders roll forwards. Keep your chest open. Can you lift your back leg up a little bit higher? Squeeze up through the back leg. Take a breath. Push to straighten your arms. Left knee to nose. Big step forwards, low lunge. Good. Shuffle that foot forward so knees roughly stacked over your ankle. Take a few breaths here to really sink down through the hips. Feeling a big stretch into the right hip now. Take a few moments here. Be on your fingertips so that your chest is still lifted, your collarbones are broad. Now make sure you're on the back thigh as you bend your right knee. Does that make sense? If you're right on the kneecap, it can feel a little bit sore, especially if your mat isn't very padded. So try and get onto the top of the thigh to bend the right knee. Then ground your right hand securely on the floor to reach your left hand back towards the foot. Maybe you're catching hold of the foot, maybe you're just reaching it back. Both is perfect. If you hold the foot, you can increase the stretch by drawing your heel towards your bum a little bit. Lean your head back, twist your chest open. Take one more deep breath here. Keep allowing the hips to sink down to deepen that stretch. It's a very big stretch. One more breath. Slowly, let's release. Ground your hands a little bit closer towards you, so hands underneath shoulders. Sweeping the left leg back, we're still on all fours. We bend the left knee. Shift the weight into the left hand. Right hand reaches back for left foot. Opposite hand to foot. Once your right hand has got hold of your foot, kick your foot into your hand. Lean your head back to open the chest a little bit more and see how high you can kick those toes up towards the ceiling. Kick up. Take one more breath. And then slowly release and come back to all fours. Oh, well done. Step one foot back, tuck the toe, followed by the other, and make your way into plank position. Holding in your plank, check your hands. Are your fingers spread wide? Active legs, gaze forwards. Take a breath in. And slow, strong push into downward dog. Exaggerate the push through your hands. Feel those arms working. Slowly, slowly push your way into downward dog. If it's the first down dog of the day, let's just walk out the feet. Do whatever feels good, bending and stretching knees. Allow for a little bit of movement in your down dog as we just ease in. Beautiful. And then holding down dog, push into your hands, press your hips up and back. See how high you can lift your sit bones up to the ceiling. And then relax your head. Gaze to the top of the mat. Option to walk, step, or jump between your hands. Standing feet together or a little apart if that's better for you, like we discussed last night. Hands to shins, halfway lift. Brace your chest forward and almost exaggerate the lift in your chest here. Exhale, forward fold. Hands in line with feet, relax your neck. Rising up to standing. High mountain pose. Remember, as we discussed last night, reach out. Feel that reach through your fingertips. Feel the stretch through your ribs, through your arms, through your shoulders. Really reach. Feel how your ribs are almost lifting away from your hips and creating space in the lower back. We'll feel that a little bit more later on. And then relax your arms down to your sides. Take a few breaths here to ground. Maybe you want to close your eyes. Come back to your breath. Check into your body. Any tension from neck and shoulders. Eyes open. Inhale, both arms up. High mountain. Really reach up. From your high mountain, release your right arm down to the side and take a nice side stretch over to the right. So feeling a good stretch through the sides of the body, helping to warm the spine for back bends. Inhale, arms reach up, high mountain. And then left arm drops to the side. Take a nice lateral stretch towards the left. Keep twisting your chest up towards the ceiling. Inhale, both arms up. And now a nice slow forward fold coming down. Maybe not quite as slow as last night. We don't need hamstrings as much today, but always good to use these moments for our hamstrings. Once you're down, hands in line with feet, and relax your neck fully. Inhale to a halfway lift, press chest forwards, lengthen your spine, exaggerate the lift of your chest here. So broad across the collarbone, shoulder blades are coming a little down and together. Ground through the hands, step back into plank. Hold your plank for a breath. Look at your hands, spread those fingers, active legs. And now slow push into downward dog. Push through your hands, push through your hands, push through your hands. Work through those arms. Keeping your hands and feet where they are, same distance as plank. Nice long downward dog. We're taking the right leg up for three-legged dog. And today I want you to allow your hips to open. So last night we kept the hips closed, remember? We kept the foot flexed down. Now do the opposite. Allow your hips to open up. Your hips will twist a little to the right. Notice how your right leg lifts higher. And then you can float that foot at the top. Now bend your right knee and open the hip so that your right heel is drawing towards your left sit bone. And just feel a good stretch there through the right hip. Just here for now, we'll take it a little bit further later on. Keep a strong push through your hands. Lift the right leg up. Open the hips. Come back to three-legged dog. Take a deep step forwards between your hands. Ground your left back knee. Anjaneyasana, low lunge with arms up. Good. With your arms up, I want you to feel here, if we sink into our lower back, you're going to get very sticky here, right? I want you to reach up through your arms and feel like you're almost lifting your ribs away from your hips. Can you feel the difference? And when we do that, we actually have more space to bend back. So reach up is going to be your mantra today. From here, drop your right arm down to the side and take a side stretch over to the right. Left arm is up, right hand is down, side stretch right. Inhale, arms reach up, really reach. Bend your elbows, cactus arms with a little back bend. Good, inhale, arms reach up. Now circle your hands behind you to interlace your fingers. Straighten your arms and lift your chest, little back bend. Feel your wrists drawing away from your hips at the back. Keep lifting out of the hips, lift your ribs up. Good, inhale, arms up, one more, reach up. Create that space in the waist. Exhale, hands to the mat. Step the right leg back into three-legged dog. Back to downward facing dog. Grounding here now, down dog. Stay with your breath. Over to the left, inhale, left leg rises for three-legged dog. Allow the hips to open. Notice how your leg goes higher. Keep pushing through your hands. Bend your left knee. Take your heel towards the right sit bone and allow the hips to open up even more. Good. Keep lifting the left knee up to the ceiling. Come back to three-legged dog. Step forwards between the hands. Lower your right knee to the mat. And inhale, arms up. Anjaneyasana, crescent moon pose, low lunge with a back bend. Take a moment here to reach up through your arms. Feel that length in the spine when we back bend. How much can you reach up? Exhale, left arm releases down, side stretch over to the left. Keep your shoulders open and pointing forwards. Inhale, arms up, reach up. Exhale, cactus arms with a back bend. Lift your chest. Inhale, arms up. Circle your arms behind you, interlace your fingers. Inhale, lift your chest, little back bend. Drawing the wrists away from the hips. Inhale, arms rise up. Reach up, create more space in the spine. Little back bend. Hands to the mat. Left leg up, three-legged dog. And back into downward facing dog. Take a few breaths here in your down dog. Keep your arms nice and strong, pushing into the mat. Looking forward, option to walk, step, or jump to your hands. Hands to shins for a halfway lift. Exaggerate the lift in your chest. Shoulders down, collarbones broad. Exhale, forward fold, head down, hands in line with feet. Relax your neck. Rising up to standing. Reach up through your arms. Feel the length through the sides of the body, the length in the spine. And then relaxing your arms to your sides. Maybe you want to roll out the shoulders, shake it out, let it all go. Come back to your breath. So we're going to take that a little bit further now, a little bit deeper, warming up shoulders, warming up the sides of the body, working into back bends in other shapes where we can feel creating space in the spine by lifting up, as well as a good stretch for those hips. So we'll start in chair pose next. So as we bend the knees, brush your fingertips across the floor. So we're getting nice and low, right? Sit down into those legs and then inhale both arms up in your chair pose. Sit your weight back into the heels, sit low. Circle your hands behind you in chair pose, interlace your fingers, and then inhale, a little back bend in your chair pose with fingers interlaced. Little back bend in chair. Take a breath, keeping the fingers interlaced, straighten the legs and forward fold, and allow your hands to gently tip overhead. Feeling a good stretch across the shoulders in our forward fold. Release the hands and inhale, halfway lift. Hands to shins, press chest forwards. Hands to the mat, take a big step back into plank. Hold in plank for a breath, spread through the fingers, open through your hands. Slow, strong push into downward dog. Push the mat away. Push the mat away. Make those arms work really hard. And then relax your head and press your hips up to the ceiling. When you're ready, right leg rises up for three-legged dog. Allow the hips to open. Bend the right knee. Tip your heel towards the left sit bone. Go on opening up the hip. Now, option here to flip your downward dog into a wild thing. So you'd step your right foot to the outside of the mat on the left side, and then we press the hips up towards the ceiling and sweep right arm overhead. Lift through the hips, lift through the chest, push off your left hand, inhale. Exhale, bring it back to three-legged dog, right leg up. Good, well done. Big step forwards for high lunge. Before we rise, check right knee stacking over right ankle. Back leg is strong and straight. Inhale, arms up, high lunge. In your high lunge, reach up through your arms, little back bend. Feel the more you reach, the more you can bend backwards. If we don't reach, we get stuck in our lower back and it feels more sticky and compressive. Right arm releases down, left arm overhead, side stretch to the right. Hips and shoulders still pointing forwards. Inhale, arms up, reach up. Exhale, cactus arms, little back bend. Inhale, arms reach up. Circling the hands behind you, interlace fingers. Inhale, lift your chest, little back bend. Ground your left back heel. And then fold your chest forwards into humble warrior, bringing your right shoulder to the inside of your right knee. Tipping the arms overhead. Back heel is grounded. And then just relax your neck here in your humble warrior. Take a few breaths here. Release the hands back to the mat, turn back into the ball of your back foot. Right leg up, three-legged dog. And back into downward facing dog. Take a moment to ground here in your down dog. And over to the other side. Inhale, left leg rises up. Allow the hips to open. Bend the left knee. Tip the heel towards the right sit bone. Option to stay here or step your left foot to the outside of the mat. Pressing hips and shoulders up, little back bend. How high can you lift the hips? Deep inhale. Exhale, bring it back to three-legged dog, left leg up. Big step forwards for high lunge. Check left knees over left ankle. Back leg is strong and straight. Inhale, arms up. Reach up. Little back bend in high lunge. See how high you can lift. Left arm releases down, side stretch to the left. Hips and shoulders are still pointing forwards. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, cactus arms, little back bend. Inhale, arms lift. Circling the arms back, interlace fingers. Inhale, lift your chest. Little back bend. Then grounding the back heel. Fold into humble warrior pose. Bring your chest to the inside of the left thigh. Take the arms up overhead and relax your neck. Bringing hands back to the mat. Turn back onto the ball of your right foot. Left leg up, three-legged dog. And coming back to downward facing dog. Ground and come back to your breath. Let's come down to the knees for a moment and just take a child's pose. Big toes together, knees apart. Stretch your arms forwards. Taking a moment to ground. Relax your shoulders, relax your arms. Stay with your breath. Listen to your body. Moving into back bend sometimes are not the most comfortable thing. Some of us love it, some of us hate it. So just at this moment, just allow your body to relax. When you're ready, extend your arms fully and press back into downward facing. Gazing to the top of the mat, option to walk, step or jump to your hands. Inhale as we halfway lift, exaggerate the lift in your chest, shoulder blades down. And exhale, forward fold, head down. Rise back up to standing. This time in high mountain, reach up with a little back bend. Reach back. And then relax your arms to your sides. Close your eyes. Take a moment to ground here in Tadasana, mountain pose. One more flow before we start moving into our peak pose. So when you're ready, we're starting in chair. Bending the knees, brushing fingertips across the ground. Sit back, Utkatasana, chair pose. Bring hands to heart center. Twist towards the right and hook your left elbow to your right outer thigh. Twisted chair pose. Lean your head back to twist your chest towards the right. From here, feel your weight on your right foot. See if you can hover your left foot off the mat and take a big step back with your left foot. Do like a little twisted high lunge, just briefly. Arms up, high lunge. Good. Tricky transition that, I know. From your high lunge, turn to the side and open up into warrior two. Feel the right thigh opening out. Left foot is grounded with your toes turned slightly inwards. Take a look down and see if you can bring your shoulders above your hips. So most likely, you're going to need to lean back towards the left a little bit. Check both arms are even on each side and sit nice and deep into your warrior two pose. Trying to keep the stack of your right knee over your right ankle. Inhale, straighten arms and legs. Turn your feet to the front, star pose. So you turn to the side of the mat. We're going to turn to the back of the mat now. Left foot turns out 90 degrees. Right toes turn in. Come through warrior two to the left side. Good. From warrior two, place your left fingers tips to the ground. Sweep your right hand down towards the mat. And then over in line with your right ear. We're in side angle pose now. Feel a nice stretch through the side body as you reach through your right hand. Lean your head back, twist your chest open. Beautiful. Stay in the lunge as we reverse our warrior. In your reverse warrior, see if you want to bind your fingers like we did earlier. So we bend the left arm. We take the right hand behind. Like we did in child's pose, maybe you want to clasp fingers. Sit deep into the lunge and reach your left elbow up to the ceiling. Beautiful. Nice stretch for those shoulders. Release the arms and windmill your arms to the back of the mat, towards your left foot. Turn onto the ball of the right foot. Step back into plank. Facing the back of your mat, slow, strong push, downward dog. From our downward dog, pointing to the back of the mat, right leg rises up, three-legged dog. Step forwards between your hands. You're going to turn to the side of the mat and come into a goddess pose. So bending the knees out to the sides. You're facing the right side of your mat now. Elbows are bent, goddess pose. We're going to straighten arms and legs, inhale. And then squat into goddess with cactus arms, little back bend. And we're going to repeat that 2 more times. Inhale, straighten arms and legs. Exhale, goddess squat, cactus arms, little back bend. Push the thighs up, feel the opening in the hips. 1 more time. Inhale to straighten. Exhale, goddess pose, little back bend. Inhale, arms up, turn back to the front of your mat. Left leg is in front, high lunge. You've got it. Cross right ankle over left thigh. Figure 4 stretch, standing at the top of your mat. Good. Sit nice and deep into those legs. Now you can stay here or option to move into dancer's pose by catching hold of the right foot from the inside of your ankle. Left arm lifts. And if you're with me, you're kicking the right toes up as high as possible and focusing our eyes for balance like last night, and then leaning forwards into dancer's pose. Taking a breath here. Wherever you are, we release, ground the feet together, and come back to standing in Tadasana, mountain pose. Back to breath. Back to center. Ready to feel that on the left? Let's go. Bending the knees, sweeping from the ground. Utkatasana, chair pose. Sit nice and deep. Hands to heart center. Twist to the left this time, hooking right elbow to left outer thigh. Then lean the head back to help you twist your chest open. Stand your weight on your left foot. Feel the right foot becoming lighter. And when you feel ready, step it back into a twisted lunge. Oh, nice. It's not easy. Arms up, high lunge. From your high lunge, we turn to open into warrior 2. Left leg is in front. Press that left thigh out. And like we felt on the first side, lean your shoulders back so your shoulders are above your hips here. Arms out to the side. Warrior 2. Inhale, straighten arms and legs, star pose. Switch feet, warrior 2 towards the right. Stacking shoulders over hips, pressing right thigh out. Right fingertips release to the mat. Left hand sweeps down to the floor. And then over in line with the left ear. Lean head back, twist chest open. Keep pressing the left thigh, the right thigh out. Keeping the lunge, we reverse our warrior with Gomukhasana arms, cow face arms, maybe taking the bind or just reaching fingertips towards one another. Lunge deep and extend that right elbow up to the ceiling for a nice stretch in the shoulders. Release to windmill the arms to the back of your mat. Onto your right foot. Step into plank, facing the back of your mat. Downward facing dog. Take a few breaths in your down dog to ground. Left leg rises, 3-legged dog. Step forwards between your hands. Come up into a goddess pose. Pressing thighs out to the sides. Arms in cactus. Inhale, straighten arms and legs, star. Exhale, goddess squat, cactus arms with a little back bend. Inhale to straighten arms and legs. Exhale, press the thighs out, little back bend. 1 more time. Inhale to straighten. Exhale to goddess, little back bend. Inhale to straighten, and then turning to the front of the mat, swivel the feet, high lunge. Right legs in front. We're going to cross left ankle over right thigh, standing figure 4. You ready? And hooking left ankle over, sit low, figure 4 pose. Stay here if this feels enough today, or option to move into dances, taking hold of the inside arch of the left foot. Right arm reaches up. Kick your left foot into your hand, just as we felt earlier. Lift the toes, and then leaning forwards for dancer's pose. Eyes focus for balance. 1 more breath wherever you are. Come back up to standing. Feet together, arms up. And then relaxing arms to your sides. Come back to your breath. Feel your body's nice and warmed up in the shoulders and the hips as we slowly start to move to our peak pose. One more breath here. Arms up, inhale, high mountain. Little back bend by just reaching up and lifting your chest here. Without sinking into the lower back, reach up. Slow forward fold coming all the way down. Hands to shins, halfway lift. Exaggerate that lift in your chest. Hands to the ground, step back into plank. Holding your plank. We're going to take a kneeling chaturanga. So from plank, lower your knees to the ground. Pause here. Lean your shoulders over your wrists now. So your shoulders have gone past your wrists. Lengthen your tailbone down so it feels like you're in plank with your knees on the floor. Now look forwards. Your mantra is to move forwards here. So as we start bending the elbows, squeeze your elbows in, look forwards and think of leaning forwards over your fingertips. Go forwards, go forwards, go forwards. So your bum isn't in the air. Your body should have lowered as one. Let's give that one more feel. Push back up to kneeling. Look forwards. Lean a little bit over your wrists. If you just lower straight, you're going to land up with your bum like this, right? What I want you to feel is really moving forwards. Last time, look forwards. Bend your elbows in, chaturanga. Squeeze elbows in, look forwards. Now push forwards over your fingertips. Lean past your hands so your body comes down as one. Point your toes, inhale, curl into a cobra pose. Just a baby cobra. In your cobra, think of pulling your hands down towards your hips so that your chest is lifting. Slowly release. Strong push back onto hands and knees. And back into downward dog. We'll feel that again in a moment. Inhale, right leg up, three-legged dog. Bring your right knee to pigeon. So as you come into pigeon, it's really important here that you take your right knee wide out to the side. So your knee should be on the outside of your right wrist here. Maybe a little bit wider than what you're used to. Your knee's almost off your mat. It's so wide. Okay, because this is going to help create a stable base for us when we go into a back bend. Shuffle your left leg back now. So you shuffle back on your left leg and your right knee is super wide. Don't worry about bringing your shin parallel to the top of the mat. Just feel broad that you could lift your hands off and be able to balance here. That's the idea. Okay, but before we go, let's walk our hands to the right side in pigeon. Feel a nice stretch through the left side of the body. And then walk your hands over to the left side in pigeon. Feel a nice stretch through the right side of the body. Coming back to center. Bring your left elbow onto the floor with your forearm parallel to the front of your mat. And twist your right arm up to the ceiling. Twisted pigeon. Make sure you're not sinking on your bottom shoulder. Press your left elbow into the floor. Lean your head back, twist chest open. Exhale, release, swap arms. Right forearm comes parallel to the front of the mat. Left arm twists open. Good. And slowly release. Push onto your right hand. Bring your right hand towards the middle of the mat. Make sure you shuffled your left leg back as much as possible. So now when you bend your left knee, you're resting on the quite high on the top of the thigh. It's going to help you to feel more stable and balanced here. Okay, we're not going into our final pose just yet. Let's just feel a good stretch. So you're going to kick your foot into your hand and then draw your heel towards your bum. Just feel a good stretch in that back thigh. Let's do that 2 more times. Kick back. Now with the spine, keep thinking of lifting up as if you're pushing down through your front shin heel to bum. Try not to sink towards the floor. See if you can lift yourself out of your hips so that you're almost floating. One more time. Kick foot into hand. Exhale, heel to bum. And here, just hold the foot. See if you can float your right arm up. It should feel like you can have a stable base here without falling off to one side because your right knee is wide and because you're on the back of your left thigh and not the knee. Good. Let's release that. We'll come back into three-legged dog. Right leg up. Exhale, downward dog. Stretch out that knee. Roll forwards into plank. Lower knees to the ground. Look forwards. Lean forwards. Slow chaturanga. Now go past your hands as you bend your elbows. Look forwards. Move forwards, 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 forwards. Nice. Point the toes. Inhale, cobra or upward dog if you're feeling ready. Cobra is perfect otherwise. Release or strong push back into downward dog. We'll all meet in downward facing dog. Left leg rises, three-legged dog. Bring it into pigeon. Take that left knee wide out to the side. How wide can you take your knee? I challenge you. It should be on the outside of your left hand. Now, shuffle, shuffle, shuffle your right leg back. So you're really feeling grounded in the hips. And maybe here already, you can feel like you can balance with your arms up. That's the idea. That's how your positioning should feel. Then we're going to walk our hands to the left side. Nice side stretch. And then walk our hands over to the right side. Come back to center to place your right elbow and forearm parallel to the mat and twisting left arm up to the ceiling. Leaning the head back, twisting the chest open. Don't sink into your bottom shoulder. Push your elbow into the floor. Release, change sides. And twisting right arm up towards the ceiling. Slowly release. Bring your left hand to the middle of the mat on your fingertips so you feel like you're lifting up. We're not sinking down, we're lifting. Bend your right back knee. Make sure that you've shuffled back enough so that when you bend your back knee, you feel like you're resting on your thigh. Take hold of your right foot and we're just going to kick the foot into the hand and draw heel to bum. Do that a few times with your breath. Inhale, kicking away. Exhale, drawing heel to bum. Whilst you're here, I want you to feel like you're pushing down through your left shin. You're still feeling that lifting of your ribs away from your hips like we felt throughout the class today. It feels like you are lifting up through the spine. Last little stretch here. Maybe you're going to hold in that stretch and hover your left arm up, making sure you can balance without hands here, that you've created a stable base. Slowly release. Ground through the hands. Sweep left leg up, three-legged dog. Back into downward facing dog. Just stretch out here. Take a moment to push through the hands, lengthen through the spine. So we'll move into our final mermaid pose now, moving into everything that we've prepped for. Right leg up, three-legged dog. Right knee goes wide, pigeon pose. Good, make sure that knee is nice and wide, and it doesn't matter how close your right foot is in here, because we're going backwards anyway. Before you go, shuffle your left leg back so you feel grounded into the hips. Can you lift your arms? Are you stable? Then we bend the back knee. Take hold of the foot on the inside of your left ankle. Maybe here, this is your final pose, right arm up. If you feel like you've got a little bit more, maybe you're going to shuffle your left elbow around your left foot. Okay? It's brought your foot in a lot closer, so explore that. And then start to draw your left hand towards your left shoulder. So your fingertips are coming up. Okay, now check in. Don't sink into the back. Draw up a little bit. It's going to give you more space as you reach your right arm up. Hopefully now you've got that stable base. Bending the right elbow and clasping the hands like we felt earlier through the class today. Push down through the right shin. Ground through the hips a little bit with it. So it's kind of like a lift and a grounding at the same time. Lift through your ribs, lift through your waist. Into your mermaid pose. Don't hold for too long if it feels horribly intense. Slowly we're going to release. Ground through the hands. Straighten the back knee. Step back, three-legged dog. And back into downward facing dog. Breathing here in your down dog. Ready for the left leg rises, three-legged dog. Coming into pigeon, taking that left knee wide out to the side. The most important thing here, whether you found your mermaid or not, is that you find a stable base where you can feel that you can lift your hands off, that you feel quite broad on your mat. That's a big achievement. Bend your back knee, make sure you've shuffled back on that thigh, that you're not perched on the kneecap, but that you're resting on your back thigh. Taking hold of the foot, and maybe this is just enough today, and you're reaching the left arm up. If you can balance here without your arms, that's huge. Well done. Stay here, or you can shuffle your foot into the elbow. Bring your right hand towards the chest, and maybe you're reaching up through the left arm and clasping hands. In this pose, go on, reaching up with your chest. Lengthen through your waist. Ground through the hips, but push off a little bit with your left shin. Finding a shape or your version of mermaid. One more breath. And then slowly we release, grounding through the hands. Straighten the back leg, pushing back, three-legged dog. And back into your downward facing dog. Well done. Let's gently walk to the top of the mat. Inhale, halfway lift, winding down. Exhale, forward fold. Relax your back here in the forward fold. Relax your neck. Bend the knees, come into a little Utkatasana. Just briefly, squat all the way down like we did last night. Knees out to the side. Come into a low squat, Malasana. Hands on the floor. Round through your back. Sit down into your bum, and then slowly roll down onto your back. Slowly, one vertebra at a time. And just let your spine be neutral for a moment. So just lie here on your back with your knees bent. Bring your arms into a gentle cactus or arms straight, and then just windscreen wipe the knees from side to side. Your feet can be wide apart or feet together, whatever feels good. Gentle twist side to side, relaxing through the back muscles. And winding from all those back bends. Good. And then when you feel even on both sides, you can bring both knees into your chest, little hug, and rock from side to side, massaging those back muscles into the mat. And then take hold of your feet on the outside, so baby toes sides of the feet. Open your knees out to the side and bend your legs into a happy baby pose. Knees on the outside of your ribs, holding baby toe sides of the feet. And maybe it feels good to do a little rock here from side to side. Or maybe you just want to be still and relax. Allow your tailbone to curl up if that feels nice, to feel a good stretch through the back. And then hug your knees into your chest once again. Curl your head up and bring your nose into your knees, nice and compact. Round, round, round your spine. Hold your right knee and extend your left leg straight and bring your nose into your right knee as your left leg extends. Round, 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 round. Pull back up and then hold your left knee, nose to knee, and extend the right leg, pushing your back into the mat. One more time each side. Right knee in, left leg out, nose to knee, round, round, round. And one more time, we change. Nice and compact. Knees together, nose between the knees, squeeze, 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 tight little ball. And then relax into the mat. Moving to your final relaxation now in Shavasana. Gently straighten your legs across the mat. Make sure that you're warm enough. Make sure that you're comfortable. And then when you're ready, allow your feet to just drop off to the sides. Allow your hands to rest in a comfortable position, either to the sides or on your tummy. If your back feels very active after that, it's also nice to lie with a pillow underneath your thighs. Otherwise, completely flat on your back here. Close your eyes and turn your awareness to your breath. Feeling your inhale moving up through your body, and your exhale breathing down your body. How are you all doing? How was it in the class? How did you feel?
I really enjoyed your class. Thank you, Laura.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Oh.
Backbend's often mixed feelings.
Yeah, really pulled those quads, like stretched them nicely this morning.
So you can see we did a lot of quad stretching to open up the front of the thighs and lots of shoulder warming in order to prep for our final pose.
That really made a difference, because usually I have really tense shoulders and they feel really blocked, and today they're super nice. And actually I don't really enjoy back bends that much, but they felt really nice. Like, I think honestly the first backbend class I've ever enjoyed.
Yay! Did you notice we didn't do a huge amount of back bends before our final back bend? We actually prepped with other movements. So, okay, we did our low lunges and high lunges, and we did a lot of stretches, but we try to warm up the spine by doing side stretches, a few twists, and other movements to warm the spine, rather than a whole bunch of back bends.
Yeah.
How do you think that changes your experience of the final pose?
For me, it just made me a lot more open. I really struggle with pigeon and like balance. I don't know. It's like my kryptonite. I can't. Pigeon's really hard for me. But it kind of just made it feel like there was more space there to go a little bit further than I was expecting to.
Yay! That's fantastic, Natalie.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I feel like I've
I'm just going to mute Michelle. Something's happening there. Sorry, Gary, you were saying?
I feel like I've never really attempted to do that posture before. So I thought it was going to be a struggle, but I was quite surprised to find that I could actually get into it and hold it for a couple of seconds. So I felt a lot more open as the class went on.
That's fantastic. Brilliant. And that's exactly what we want. We want to warm and prep the right areas. So when you get to the final pose, you're like, oh, wow, my leg can bend in this close. Or, oh, I can take my shoulder a little bit further back than I normally can because we've warmed up those muscles. And also, if we did a whole lot of back bends, like if we did tons of cobras and upward dogs and all sorts of back bends, by the time we get to the final pose where we really want to do the back bend, often your back's actually quite tired. And then you actually just like you've just had enough, especially with back bends, because it's strong in our bodies. It's strong for our spines to bend backwards. It's not one of our natural movements that we do in everyday life for most of us. So it's tough. So we rather, when it comes to back bends, want to warm up shoulders and legs, the limbs around the body, as well as some spinal movements in different ways. So twisting, side stretching to warm up the back in more ways than just bending backwards. Okay, so we've got some questions in the chat. So Celine, you have a question?
Yes, please. When we're in pigeon pose, are there any strengthening exercises or further stretching you can do? Because I found that it's almost like a fine balance between tipping over and like getting really hurt somewhere.
Yeah. So can you see Celine? Can you all see Celine? I'm trying to pin her so that the video is bigger. I don't know if it made a difference on your side. So Celine, you can see her shin. She's brought it up really high. So you've often heard that instruction in yoga classes, bring your front shin to the parallel to the top of the mat. Now, a lot of us aren't able to do that. I can see Celine, she's got quite flexible hips that she can do that. And when we're doing it as a bum stretch, as like a hip opener, an external rotation pose, we can encourage a little bit more of that shin coming up. But when we do it as a back bend, it's kind of irrelevant how far we've brought that shin forwards, because our main goal is to bend backwards, right? So when it comes to this pigeon, like I was emphasizing in the class today, we want to create a stable base. And this is where you're going to see that strength and stability from this pose. So if Celine does the pose now and takes her knee closer towards the camera now, and she's brought her knee a whole lot wider. Yes. So you can see her thighs almost pointing out diagonally. And Celine, if you don't mind taking your back leg behind you as well and coming into pigeon. Yes. Can you see how her knee's almost off her mat? So we've made it a lot broader. So we've almost created more surface area to balance on. Yes, exactly, Celine. And now just what you're doing now, can you see how you're pushing down through your front shin? And you can also think of your inner thigh muscles, the muscles in your inner legs, almost squeezing together and drawing up. And I love what you're doing there. You're hovering off the floor and you're using strength to hold yourself there. That looks perfect. How does that feel, Celine?
It feels a lot better than when I did it before, because earlier I felt like this back leg over here was gonna like flop over, something was gonna like pop out.
Exactly. So you want to try and balance your weight evenly on both sides of the pelvis. And the other instruction, Celine can do it here because she's in the pose, is slide your left leg further back. So it's going to get you a little bit more grounded. Yes. And you manage to balance more on the top of your thigh rather than on that like boating kneecap. And that also creates more stability. So finding the balance now, rock a little bit more towards me. So you're balanced between both hips. Yes. Suction those thighs up. Don't lean too much on the right or left. Be in the middle. Yes, just like that. And then you can reach your arms up overhead and test that you've got your stable base. That looks fantastic.
Thank you. Oh, really cool.
Well done, Celine. Thanks for that. Who else had a question? Michelle, your echo's gone now. You can chat to us.
That was my own fault. I actually had Zoom open twice. I was trying to figure it out and I realized I had you twice. So I actually missed the discussion with Celine, but I also had a bit of a problem with that. And it didn't feel quite right. Were you explaining that actually she has to lift her back leg off the ground? Is that it?
Not quite. with the back leg, you want to slide your leg backwards, further away from you. So it brings your hips lower into the pose. So do it now, Michelle, if you like, because it's easiest to feel it and it's the easiest for me to see, because otherwise I'm just like giving instructions and you might be different.
I'm going to have to move. I keep moving my laptop from the counter to the floor.
Oh, don't worry. You can keep it there if you want, Michelle, and then just be close to your cupboard so we can see you, even if you're not on the mat.
Can you see my mat? Okay, so
anywhere around there.
So one is here. This one is here.
Okay, can you angle your camera down a little bit? Sorry, Michelle.
Right.
Just point. There we are. Perfect. Perfect.
I think it might have been more on one side than the other. This side was easier. I think maybe it was just this side.
Okay. All right.
There we were trying to. Actually, I think now that I've tried it on both sides, I think I've just got more tightness on one side.
Yes, and the back leg can feel a little bit tighter, and that might be why it feels a little bit stickier, and why we need to warm that back hip flexor and quad up so nicely here. So now, Michelle, see if you can sit a little bit more towards your back leg side. So sit more towards the left. Yes. Take your right knee closer towards me, wider out to the side. Yes, just like that. Yes. Slide your left leg back a little bit more. So now can you feel that you're sitting between both sides of the pelvis? That's exactly it.
I'm off the ground though.
That's perfectly fine. Your bum will be off the ground unless you're crazy flexible in your hips, then your bum would be on the floor. But to have a little bit of hovering is completely normal. It's absolutely fine. But we want to be balanced rather.
Am I supposed to put my arms up in the air now, though?
So it's a process. It's a process. Be on your fingertips there, Michelle. Come onto your fingertips in front of you. So you're more upright. Okay. Now feel that you're pushing down in your right shin. Push it down a little bit. So you've added a bit of strength. So we're not sinking. Be upright and push your foot and your shin into the floor. Yes, just a little bit. Now lift your chest.
Yeah.
Feel light on your fingertips. Now your inner thighs. Think of squeezing your thighs together. Yes. Can you feel that your legs are holding you stronger now?
But I can't put my arms.
That's okay. That's all right. That's the journey, right?
All right. Can I ask? I had two other questions, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
One was with the squat. What is priority? Keeping our feet flat on the ground or getting our bum as low as possible to the ground?
So your heels have to pop off the floor for that squat. Unless your Achilles tendons are crazy long, your heels will pop up. Okay. And that's completely normal. And then your bum will come to the floor. That's the priority.
Okay. And the last one then is, with a downward dog, you kept telling us to be long. And
yes.
I always try and get closer together. For some reason, I feel like that's working harder and better for me. But today you kept saying stay long. Are there different ways of doing it and different reasons for doing it? So sometimes should we get closer together and sometimes longer? What is the actual purpose? Because I thought it was supposed to be, and is it a relaxing position? What is the purpose of the downward dog?
Okay, so first of all, you can do downward dog in many different ways. And it always depends who you're teaching and what you're teaching it for. So if I was teaching a handstand class and I wanted you to be shorter because you're going to kick up into handstands, then a short down dog will be relevant. Most of the time, and the rest of the time pretty much, we're flowing in vinyasa through a sun salutation, right? So we're going from plank, chaturangas, up dogs, down dogs. Your feet should remain that same distance in order to transition smoothly. So you're going to see that now, Michelle, when we now go from that downward dog and step forwards into high lunge, your legs are the correct distance. Your feet are the correct distance. Where if you were in a short downward dog, if you step forwards into lunge, your feet are going to be too narrow. So this is why, because we're linking poses in a vinyasa class with flow, we want to keep the same distance as plank and downward dog. So your feet don't move. So when you step forwards between your hands, it's all the same distance. And then you'll see now with the standing poses we do today, it gets you into fantastic aligned poses, well, nice shapes, because you're nice and wide. You can keep your knees stacked over your ankle, and there's enough length in the poses.
So when we're teaching it, we have to be very clear. Do I want the class to do a long or we must be very clear and give that instruction.
You don't have to stress too much, just from plank, downward dog, stay like that. And pretty much that is pretty much 90% of the time you'll be doing long downward dogs. It works nicely for most people. First of all, it gives you more space to lengthen your spine. So that's what we want in downward dog. So if you do downward dog now, Michelle, if you do a short downward dog, just so the rest of us are learning through this a little bit as well. Can you see the spine doesn't have much space to lengthen? There's maybe a little bit of rounding. And Michelle's not bad at all because she's quite flexy. Now, Michelle, come forwards into plank. You'll need to walk your hands or feet back a little bit. Okay, so now from your plank, push into downward dog from here. Can you see we've created much more space, much more length? Now she's almost going into a little back bend because she looks like she's got very flexible shoulders. Can you see how much more room that's given you? And now, Michelle, step forwards with your right foot between your hands. Good. And now her knees pretty much stacked over her ankle, and she could flow into high lunge, warrior two, everything from here, and her feet will be in the right place without having to do any extra shuffling. Ah, okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Thanks, Michelle. And I know that's why I brought it up last night straight from the get-go, because we all have this habit of when we get into downward dog, we step our feet in about a foot's distance, which then makes us a foot's distance too short for the next pose.
Sorry, I have one more question. Sorry for hogging all the time. Is the downward dog, is it a linking position? What is the purpose of it? And the reason I ask that is I've discovered that there's something happens to me when I keep making my head go up and down. I start to feel really nauseous, and I actually lay down for an hour or two.
Oh no.
So when you're telling us to do knee to head, you know,
Yes.
I don't do that because I know I'm going to feel sick. Something happens here for me. And so I'm just trying to see, what am I missing? What am I not going to be getting if I don't do that? And what is the purpose of it?
No, downward dog most of all is a linking position, and we use it to transition. So we use downward dog to step forwards into all the poses in vinyasa. So it's kind of your linking step. I think the movement of coming forwards and back, it might be a little bit of a blood pressure thing. I'm not sure. I'm not a doctor. I can't answer that. Maybe something worth addressing at some stage. And it's not important to do knee to nose and all of that. Rather just stay in downward dog. And I think once you've stepped forwards or whatever the next pose is, come into it slowly. So it might just be because all the blood is rushing to your head, and then you're coming up, and then it's, ugh.
Yeah.
So you need to transition a little bit slower, and when you come up from downward dog, take your time. Even if you're a few beats behind us, that's totally fine.
Okay, thank you.
Don't want you feeling nauseous in our classes. And something to learn to work with, or something maybe to address, but you shouldn't be feeling that way. But we do downward dog a lot, so something you need to just figure out. Okay. Alrighty. Okay, so how are the rest of us doing? We all happy to continue? Any other questions before we move on?
Yeah, I've got a question, if that's okay.
Hi, Lynn.
Hi. When you're in downward dog and you're putting your leg up for a three-legged dog, I've always been told to put the foot on the floor into the center of the mat.
That is totally fine if that feels better for you. And I think it also depends, like if you're stepping forwards now. So often we go three-legged dog and then step forwards. Then we've got our feet like this, right? So for me, it doesn't really make too much of a difference. For me, if I step in, then my feet feel like they're doing that when I come to standing. But Lynn, if it feels more comfortable for you to step in a little bit and then go into three-legged dog, that's perfect because it works for you.
Okay. I wondered
it's
whether
not
there
really
was a
a drama.
right
I
and
think
wrong
it's also
way.
to do, with your feet, or maybe what's comfortable with your hip distance, more narrow, maybe you need more space, and that's totally fine. And it does feel more stable in three-legged dog. I totally agree. But then when you step forwards, just make sure your feet don't feel like they're like runway model walking like this.
Yeah.
You've still got a comfortable stance.
Right. Okay. Thank
But
you.
that is perfectly fine.
Laura,
Yes, Dizzy, hi.
I just want to find out when we do the three-legged dog, like last night we did it with our feet flexed so that we stay more square. And then today we did it with opening up the hip. So is it just depending on what you're trying to achieve in the class?
Absolutely. You answered that perfectly. So my answer is always going to be, I said it to one of you last night afterwards, it depends who you're teaching and what peak pose you're sequencing for. So last night I wanted you to square off your hips, and we emphasized the flex in the foot because if your toes point down, your hips have to turn parallel. So we used that to do Warrior 3. Where today we wanted the hips to open and get a really nice hip opening stretch, and we wanted to go into that wild thing, flipping the downward dog. So then we wanted the hips to open. Just as in our chair pose today, we did chair pose normally, and then we did chair pose as a back bend as well. And then we did it as a twist. So you can use the same pose and teach it in different ways to emphasize whatever you want from the pose, whatever you're teaching as your peak pose, or maybe you're teaching beginners, so you're going to teach it one way. Or maybe you're teaching advanced practitioners, so you would teach it a different way. So the pose has some range of flexibility depending on what you're doing. So it's a great question. Does that make sense? So you'll see we'll do all the same poses, but we might do them differently on the day because we're doing it for a different reason.
Okay, and then for more beginners, it would be then, I think that the hip opening one is a little bit easier than keeping your...
It is. Keeping your hips parallel is really hard. It takes a lot of concentration to not open our hip because naturally we do, right? And most of the time I would say just allow the hip to open, it's totally fine. But when I'm teaching Warrior 3, I don't want to encourage that because we want to feel those hips trying to stay parallel. So you're totally right. And normally sometimes we use three-legged dog just to gain momentum to help step forward, because that step forwards is hard, right? Could you guys feel by moving the hand out the way, it really helps?
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah,
why doesn't anyone tell us this?
I've been doing yoga for how many years and nobody's ever said that to me before.
That flippant step can be one of the hardest things to do in a sun salutation. And we step forwards a lot in vinyasa. To high lunge, Warrior 2, we're stepping forwards all the time. So move that hand out the way. So sometimes that three-legged dog helps us gain that momentum to step forwards as well. So whatever you're teaching, and depends who you're teaching and what you're teaching it for. It is always going to help you narrow down the options and decide which version you're teaching. And you'll see that more as we go along with this intelligent sequencing. We've put every pose in the class for a reason. It's not just there because it feels nice. It's there because it's there to teach us something, or to warm up something, or to activate a muscle. Everything has been thought out. Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'm going to continue with our pose breakdown because we're going to do a lot of the important poses today. But Linda, you have a question?
A question. When you were instructing Michelle, I couldn't see her on my screen.
Oh.
Is there something I need on Zoom, or is it something you manage?
I thought I could manage it, but apparently I can't. So what you can do, if you scroll over the little boxes, you can see, and if I'm talking, my box goes yellow, right? And if you talk, your box goes yellow. So that's going to help you to see who's asking the question. And then if you want to zoom in, if you scroll over their little box, you'll see you get 3 dots in the corner.
Next to more.
You can say pin video. And if I pin the video, you become big.
Interestingly enough, mine doesn't say that. If I click on more,
maybe wait, I can maybe do this. Maybe I can spotlight the video. Ah, has that made Michelle Belinda big for everyone?
Yes.
Okay, I can manage it now. Okay, so I will do that when we have little extra demonstrations, and then I can make that bigger for you.
Perfect, thank you.
And one more thing on the Zoom thing. If you guys want to ask a question and I haven't noticed you frantically waving your hand, one more way you can ask a question is you can raise your hand, and I see a little hand on your screen. If you go to your participants at the bottom of the screen, down here somewhere, you'll see security and then participants. Click that box. And then, I can't do it now, I think, because I'm the host. But anyway, you should see at the bottom there, it says, oh, that's chat. Sorry, I'm glitching out. There we are. You should see at the bottom, you can say raise hand. Oh, there we are. Everybody's raising their hands. Can you see that? Yeah. So if I'm ignoring you and you want to ask a question, just raise your hand, okay? Cool. Now we've had a little lesson in Zoom and I've learned something as well. Let's come into our pose. Now lower your hands, otherwise I think you've got questions. Unless you have a question, then leave it up.
A question. So would you prefer us to put our hand up like that or to actually put our hand up?
I don't mind. If we like this and we're all chatting and then I can actually see you, it's all good. But say now I'm in the pose and you have a question that you want to ask and then I'm not seeing it, just pop it on. So either is fine. Okie dokie. So last night we chatted about Tadasana mountain pose. And we spoke about the feet and our posture and being upright in mountain pose. And then we also spoke about when we take our arms up overhead, allowing the shoulder blade to move up with the arm because it's natural. And maybe today you felt that in the class today when we were really reaching to create length and space in our spines, we allowed the shoulders to move up with our arms. And it doesn't create pain. It's all good. It's completely normal. And it's good to kind of practice because when you go into handstand later on, you're going to need to push. And your shoulders are going to be up a little bit higher to your ears. And that's fine. Okay. So if there aren't any questions on that, I'm going to move to our next pose.
I have a question.
Hi, Jamie.
Hi. Am I correct in saying that Tadasana is the normal mountain pose and Utthasana is the high mountain?
Correct. You're so right.
Is
So
that
in your manual it says Urdhva Hastasana. Urdhva means upwards. And Hasta means hands. And you'll see all the Sanskrit names end with asana because asana means pose. So it's upward hand pose. Doesn't quite have a ring to it, so we call it high mountain. Thanks, Jamie.
I've got one question, please.
Yes, Gary.
Similar to what she asked just there, you know, in a hatha sun salutation sequence, you use Parvatasana, which is also translated to mountain pose.
So you're going to see this a lot in yoga. Different styles will have different Sanskrit names for the poses, just to make it confusing for us.
So hatha poses are different to vinyasa?
If it's the exact same pose and you're standing in Tadasana, you'll see Vinyasa, Ashtanga, and Iyengar yoga all share the similar names of the Sanskrit words. Then your Hatha yoga and Bikram yoga use different names. And then even within that, there's variations. Some teachers have learned it this way and they call it this, and some teachers call it that. It's always kind of a little bit of a confusion. At the end of the day, you can call it what you want as long as it's right somewhere. Does that answer your question, Jamie?
Yeah.
And then there's all these modern day poses that come out as well. So when I was doing yoga, I learned from the BKS Iyengar Light on Yoga. Have any of you seen that book?
Yeah.
Quite old school these days, I guess. And it's referred to as the Yoga Bible. So we kind of studied from this Light on Yoga. It's lovely as like a history book. A lot of it's a little bit extreme, but interesting. Some of the techniques are a little outdated. We've kind of changed a few things since then. But we kind of refer to that for a lot of the Sanskrit names as well. A lot of styles of yoga use Light on Yoga. So you can always check in with that. And then there's a lot of modern day poses, like today we did that wild thing. And someone out there has made a Sanskrit name for wild thing as well. So we're constantly getting new names, new poses, new Sanskrit. None of it, there's no real history of wild thing before. It's just a new pose. So it's just one of those funny things. Answered your question, but not quite. Nicole, you have a question?
Hi, Laura.
Hi.
I want to know, I read that book, The Light on Yoga. Would it be worth it for me to also study from that book, or would it make me more confused?
It's going to make you more confused.
Okay.
It's lovely as a reference, and it's really nice because it was the first yoga book where there was actual illustrations of the yoga poses. But a lot of the techniques, and we've learned more about anatomy, and we've learned more about all sorts of things that we've kind of evolved a little bit from those techniques. It's nice to look at as a source of interest, but you'll notice we're going to do a lot of the standing poses a little bit differently from what we've learned since then.
Thank
but
you.
It is an awesome book. Okie dokie. Are we ready to go?
Mm-hmm.
But good. Always ask questions. Always feel free to shout. Okay, so I'm going to come into our manual poses again, and we're going to discuss Utkatasana chair pose. It's on page 50 in your yoga manual. Okay. So Utkatasana chair pose can be done in many different ways. I spotlighted now. Am I bigger on your screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So like you felt today, we did it as a back bend. We did it normally, and we can do it quite upright as well. So I'm going to show you the different versions, and then we'll stand up and feel them as well. Okay, and again, it depends who you're teaching and what peak pose you're teaching this pose for. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So Utkatasana, if it's comfortable for you, and it is sometimes easier for most of us to have our feet together for this pose. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Candy last night that prefers her feet hip distance apart. That's also totally fine. Okay, I'm going to teach it with feet together. That's how we would normally do it. And then as we're entering our chair pose, just standard chair pose, I quite like the entry of bending the knees and brushing fingertips towards the ground. All right, it just gets you low and it gets your hips down towards the mat. Right? So I'm going to brush fingertips across the mat and then take the arms in line with the ears and sit into chair pose. What we want to do in our chair is have our weight back. All right? If my weight is forwards on my toes, I won't be able to come down as low. So weight is in the heels. Bum is going to sit backwards. The more weight you have back, the easier it is to sit low. And we're trying to get our thighs nice and low in Utkatasana. Okay? Next, I'm going to squeeze my knees together, which is helpful. When your legs are apart, there's almost nothing to really rest on. So knees together sometimes makes it easier. And my spine, I'm going to keep in its natural curve, right? So you've probably heard the instruction a lot, tuck your tailbone. You don't need to tuck your tailbone. You just need to sit back. The reason why you feel your back muscles working a bit here is because the arms have come overhead. Like we felt last night, when the arms are up, it intensifies the pose because it adds more weight, more load. So you'll hear the instruction a lot, tuck your tailbone, because it feels like your back is arching, but actually it's your back muscles are working to compensate for the extra load of your arms. So you'll feel that now when we do the pose. Alternatively, you can keep your hands in prayer and it would feel way less loading for the rest of the body with your arms down. Okay. I can also come into chair with my arms up and then try and sit low like this. If I wanted a more upright chair position, what do you think is stopping me from going down?
Your weight?
The curve of your back.
We'll feel it in a bit.
You lift your heels, you can get that.
Who said feet?
Flexibility.
So my Achilles tendons, these guys over here, are being stretched. And you'll feel it now. When you feel it, it actually stops you from going down. Right? Because I haven't leaned forwards to allow the weight to go back. We'll feel that in a sec. One more version. We can take the hands back, interlace fingers, little back bend like we did in the class this morning because it was relevant for our sequence. And then I'm allowing the arch in the back and the lifting in the chest. And then it's quite nice to fold. Okay, so let's play with those 3 for now. We will do the twisted one when we do the twisted poses, okay?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
What is priority for us? Keeping our feet flat on the ground, keeping our back straight, or getting our bum level with our knees? What are we aiming for?
Who you're doing it with and what you're doing it for. Generally speaking, Michelle, we'll do the first one when your bum is back and you're sitting low, most of the time, unless for a very specific reason.
Okay.
We want to keep the feet on the floor in all the versions.
Okay. Okay.
And it just depends on what you want to do with the spine, if you're doing it in a back bend sequence, or if you're doing it upright, maybe because you're teaching handstand little bunny hops, and you want to keep the spine fairly upright, but you want to feel a bit of work in the legs. But the rest of the time, we're doing that first version, which we're going to do now.
Thanks.
Okay. All right, everyone, let's come to standing. Feet together, arms to your sides, Tadasana, mountain pose. So we enter Utkatasana from Tadasana. We enter chair from mountain pose. Good. With your legs together, bend your knees and brush your fingertips across the mat. Good. So now you can feel it's got you low, right? Now, sweep your arms forwards alongside your ears. Place your weight back into your heels more. Rock forwards, rock back. Feel the difference. When your weight is in your heels, your bum can sit lower. Sit lower now. Yes, good. Now squeeze your thighs together if your knees are together. Your arms are up, so it's harder. Bring your hands to heart center for a moment. Notice how that decreases the intensity rapidly, right? Then arms up again. Much harder. Michelle, sit your bum down a little bit more as if you're going to sit on a chair. Bum back and down. Yes. Lift your chest. So you're trying to lift your chest a little bit. Good. And then come back up to standing. Whew. Now you're feeling warm. Cynthia's smiling. How the rest of you feeling with that? Okay, so you can feel your thighs are working nicely, right? Okay, do you feel the difference of the arms there? When your arms were up, hardcore. When your hands were in prayer, less bad. So that, if you're teaching beginners and you want to be a nice yoga teacher, hands to the center of the chest. If you want to be a mean yoga teacher, arms up. Let's try the upright version now. So stand in Tadasana, mountain pose, and then take arms up, high mountain. And now imagine your back is against a wall and just slide down, Don't lean forwards, just slide down, stay upright. So now you can tell me what's stopping you. What do you feel? If your heels stay on the floor, keep your heels on the floor, Michelle. What stops you?
Calves.
Calves and Achilles. So if I wanted to work on that area of the body for some particular reason, we could do it like that as well. Why not? Stand back upright. Let's do one more. We'll do the back bend version. So knees together, feet together if that's comfortable. Again, bend your knees and brush your fingertips across the mat. Sit low. Take your arms up overhead. Weight back into your heels. Sit your bum low. Chest upright. Good. Now circle your hands behind you, interlace your fingers. Straighten your arms and inhale, lift your chest, go into a little back bend. Good. Don't scrunch your neck. Try and keep your neck a little bit longer. Yes, good. And then release, come back to standing. Or you can forward fold there, which also feels nice. Okay, it's 3 different ways of doing Utkatasana. It depends who you're doing with and what you're doing it for. Is going to be pretty much your mantra for this course. Okay,
Can I ask a question?
please do.
My thighs take mega strain and my knees were shaking like crazy. What do you do
Good. Your quadricep muscles, your thighs, are working in that pose, and that's exactly what we want from it. So we're strengthening legs in this pose.
I noticed that when you said to lean further back onto your heels, that activates the quads a lot more.
It does, absolutely. And you can get lower, hey, Jamie?
Yeah. Is it a good thing to, if somebody says it puts too much strain on their quads, to say to maybe lean a little bit further forward and not so much on the heels?
We are strengthening the quads, so we want some muscle activation there. What I would do if it was too much is just say bend less.
Okay.
Decrease the range of movement is going to be your go-to if anyone is having any discomfort or is straining at all. Just do less is your easiest modification.
Would you bend less at the knees or less at the hips or both?
Both. It kind of depends.
Okay.
Just come up a little bit higher. So there would be decreasing less on both ends.
Okay.
But I think it's good. We need to strengthen our legs in yoga because next we have goddess pose, next we have lunges, and then warrior twos, and we work our thighs a lot. So we want to get strong. Celine likes that. And I think yoga is often seen a lot to do with stretching, right? Someone once told me, isn't yoga just glorified stretching? And it made me so angry. It's like we do a lot of strength work in yoga as well. And that's a huge benefit to doing a yoga class, is you're getting strong at the same time. And we're all about strength here. Yes, we like stretching a little bit, but we're more impressed if you're strong because it's more rewarding. Flexibility is only going to take you so far. Yeah, it feels nice to be able to touch your toes, but strength is what we want. Mecca, you have a question. Am I saying your name right? Is it Mecca?
Yeah.
Tell me if I'm saying it wrong. I'm terrible with names.
When I'm bending my knees, it's not coming more in my quads. It's going more like to the interior. Is that wrong? Or
Mecca, I can't hear you very well. Can you talk closer to the screen? Just the volume. Are you feeling the back of your legs? Is that what you're saying? So we'll just wait for Mecca's question there. Just plugging in something.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes, I can hear you way better now. Thank you.
Awesome. So I'm not feeling it in my quads when I'm bending down. It's more like tib anterior, like in the front of my shin.
More into the shins. Yes. Yeah. So through your feet. Interesting. So do you have quite strong quads to begin with?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. So it's interesting. We're going to feel things differently. And because we're having the weight quite far back, it's making the front of your feet work and your shins work pretty hard as well. So we're strengthening that whole front line. And if your quads are really strong, maybe you don't feel that as much. Maybe it's highlighting another area of your body.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
It's good. We all have different experiences in the poses. So we say it's good not to assume that your students are experiencing everything that you feel. It's like me. I love backbends. You could throw me into backbends for 5 hours. I would do it happily. I can't assume that you're going to enjoy that as well. Right? Because we all have different bodies. We all have different strength and flexibility and different proportions. This will come up a lot. If you've got long arms and you can put your hands on the floor and lift your bum off the floor into an arm balance, it's a huge advantage for someone who has short arms that hands don't even touch the floor when they sit down. For them, that pose is going to be really hard. And it's not because necessarily of strength or anything. It's just literally they have more arms to lift or less arms to lift. So we're all so different. So I'm glad that you all share your experiences in the pose. Okay.
Meeks, is it possible that maybe your knees are going a little bit beyond your toes? I feel like that would put more strain on your tib anterior.
Possibly, yeah. Possibly.
Because then if you lean back further, like she said earlier, if you lean back further onto your heels, and that I felt that like instantly in the quad.
Yeah, I'll definitely try next time.
So it's good to play with both. For me, the more weight I have forwards, I feel it more in my feet. So it's just interesting. It's interesting exploration. So of course, I'm going to look at you all on an individual, more individually as we do our little reviews when we meet in smaller groups. So maybe then I would say, okay, Jamie, you need to do this with your legs, or Mecca, I need you to lean back more. So I can give you more individual feedback. If there's anything strange going on or anything I can advise you with, we'll refine more personally soon. So now just understand the poses, and during the weeks that we're not having session, you can go through these poses and practice them on your own. Okay. Okay. All right, so that is our Utkatasana chair pose, and we will revisit it in our next review. Our next pose is goddess pose. We did it in the class this morning. Again, we're working your thigh muscles, right? But what are we doing differently in our goddess pose? Our legs are wider apart. And what have I brought in? My legs are doing what?
Sticking out.
Yes, they're going outwards. So we call this outwards action. When our thigh turns out, we call that external rotation. Okay? Where chair pose was parallel, there was no rotation, you're just squatting down. Goddess pose has now brought in this outwards rotation, external rotation in the legs. We do that a lot in yoga, right? So I'm going to start talking about these different actions, and then we can slowly start to talk more about what we'd use to prep for different poses, with external rotation and without external rotation. Let's go through the pose first. When we have a few more, then I'll bring that in. Okay, so this pose is a squat with externally rotated legs. Okay, so normally we would have come maybe from a lunge like we did today, and then opened up to the side and then bent into goddess pose, right? What we don't want in this pose is for our knees to be rolling inwards. We want to encourage our thighs to press outwards, externally rotating the legs. Okay, so that means you need to check your feet as well. If I turn my feet out too much, right, and then bend, my knees are going to roll forwards of my feet, right? So better for me to turn my feet a little bit more forwards, more like a 45-degree angle, so that when I squat into goddess, I'm trying to keep my knees following the same line as my toes and not rolling in. Does that make sense? That is going to be the biggest thing you'll need to check in goddess pose. Now, all of us are very, very different in our hips. Some of you will be able to squat with your knees out to the side and have a very straight back. Yeah, it's just because you've got more range of movement, more mobility in your hip sockets. Okay, where some of us squat there and our knees and feet need to point a little bit forwards, and we might find that we have to lean a little bit forwards, and it might feel like your bum is sticking out. It might feel like your tailbone is tucked. We're all so different, we might look a little bit different in this pose. So let's give it a bash and then see how we feel. Okay, we'll do the arms in cactus position. That's kind of your standard position, but you could always have hands in whatever shape you wanted to. Okay, so let's come up to standing. Let's go from plank down dog. So now I want to start to work this stepping into the poses and linking how we would normally sequence and flow. So from your plank, to get your distance of your hands and feet, then press your hips up, downward facing dog. So we're in a nice long down dog, but it's going to be your normal down dog now. Step your right foot forwards, come up and turn to the side and move into goddess pose. Good. So your feet have turned out to the sides, maybe at a 45-degree angle. Bend your knees, look at your legs, and make sure your knees are not rolling forwards, but that you can press your thighs outwards. And if you were drawing a line from your knee towards your big toe and second toe, your knees over those toes. Yes? Arms in cactus, squat low. Notice what's happening with your pelvis. The dancers are doing like a second plie in second position very comfortably. Those with flexy hips. While maybe some others, it feels uncomfortable and you're going to reduce the rotation from your feet and your knees so your feet are pointing a little bit more forwards. Michelle, you can turn your feet out a little bit more and then squat down. Yes, that looks better. Perfect. That looks great, Gary. Nice, Bev. Yeah. And then slowly come up. Cinchi, can you stay there, please? Because I know she's a dancer. Have a look, right? I'm going to spotlight you. Can you do goddess again, please? So because she's got, dancers tend to have this huge range of external rotation in the legs. When she comes down, can you see her pelvis and her body is going to stay pretty much upright? And all that movement is happening in her hips. You see her knees are pointing out to the sides. I don't know about you, but my legs don't do that. It's very different. Can you see she's staying completely upright? She hasn't had to lean her chest forwards. We are all very different, right? So, but since her feet are going to point out to the side because her knees are pointing out to the sides, it's going to look different. Beautiful. Thank you. Who feels the opposite in this pose? Who feels like their knees roll forwards and it's just terribly uncomfortable?
I do.
Lynn, can we use you as our next example just to show differences in the pose? So for Lynn, sorry, I'm just trying to get a spotlight. When Lynn comes into the pose, she's going to feel, Lynn, can you turn your camera angle down a little bit so we can see your legs? Perfect. So when Lynn comes into the pose, because her knees don't point out to the sides, and she's really not bad at all, that looks great, her knees are going to come forwards a little bit more, so we don't want her toes turned out to the sides. Her toes are going to angle a little bit more forwards to follow the line of her knees. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I feel like I'm leaning forward now.
So this is the thing. Lynn, because of that, she leans forwards a little bit to offer more space, and that's fine. And if Lynn, if you came upright, you're going to feel like you're a bit more in a back bend.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just because your pelvis is like this. So to be upright, you're going to back bend a little bit. And that is normal because we're all different. We can't change our bone structure. It just is. Thanks, Lynn. Okay. So goddess is one of those poses. Some will love it. Some are going to feel a little bit uncomfortable. It's totally fine, right? But just make sure that you haven't turned your feet out to the sides as if your knees are going to point out to the sides. You adjust your feet accordingly to how far your knees are tracking over your toes. Does that make sense? Okay. Cool. Mostly goddess pose is a transitioning pose. Yeah, it's one of these new modern poses that we can bring in because it helps to, it's fun for sequencing that we can get from the front of the mat and then turn around to face the back of our mat. So it's great for that. And if I was teaching a pose like today where we had pigeon, we did mermaid, and we had external rotation with our front leg in pigeon, I brought in this pose in Warrior 2, side angle pose, for a little bit of stretching to work out external rotation. My internet went a bit funny there. Did you hear me? All good. Okay. Belinda, you had a question.
Question, do your knees have to be over your heels?
So basically that's going to be how wide you are stepping. So if your feet are very close together, your knees are going to go past your ankles and your feet. The wider your feet apart, yes. Oh, so that you're meaning less. That's fine, Belinda. That looks fantastic. Pretty much we're looking for our shins to be straight, if possible.
Yeah.
What you're doing there is fantastic. We want our shins to pretty much be vertical on each side, but it's not a drama if they aren't. It's fine. Okay, happy with that? Fabulous. Moving on, because I want to get into the big stuff today. So next pose, we've got Skandasana. Skandasana, this is our side squat lunge. We don't have a fantastic English name for it. It's on page 51 in your manual. I will show you the pose, and we will do it tomorrow in our arm balancing sequence as well. Okay. So for Skandasana, normally I would have come from stepping forwards from a lunge. And then from my lunge, I'm going to turn to the side. When I turn to the side, could you see how my back foot went from being on the ball of the foot, swiveled onto the heel, then toes up to the ceiling? So I'm getting a very big stretch through the inner thighs of the extended leg, and I'm externally rotating both legs in this pose. Okay, so my knees and my toes should be pointing up to the ceiling. Okay, my bent leg, can you see how the heel has lifted? So like Michelle, you were asking if the heel stay down. For this one, your heel will pop up, okay, because we want to get really low, unlike chair pose where we keep the feet down. Here, now some of you might be able to sit in Skandasana with your heel down. It really depends on your ankle flexibility, okay? Doesn't matter, being on the toe is pretty much normal, okay? And your knee is going to externally rotate out to the side. In Skandasana, we can have hands on the floor. You could even put elbows on the floor or hands in the center of the chest. Okay, it depends what you're teaching and who you're teaching. Then from Skandasana, we can transition to the other leg, which is often what we do in a vinyasa class. And again, it's a cool transition move if you wanted to change direction or change legs on the other side. Okay, should we give that a go? Big stretch, let's go. Plank downward dog. You'll notice I take you from plank downward dog because it gets your legs wide enough when you step forwards. Okay, let's step the left foot forwards for a change. Left foot forwards. And then bring your hands to the inside of your left foot. Swivel to the side and come into Skandasana on the left. Let your left heel pop up there, Andrea. Yes, heel up off the floor. Your left heel pops up, will make it a lot easier. So you're balancing on the ball of the foot, which leg is bent, right? Put your hands on the floor for now. A lot of you have got your heel down. You need to lift your bottom heel in order to squat lower. Yes? So have a look if you're not sure. If I'm here in Skandasana, if I'm trying to keep my heel down, I'm going to be quite high, right? If you put your hands on the floor and then pop up onto the toe of your bent leg, you're going to be able to come down lower. So feel the difference? Okay. Yes, Andrew, you got it. Nice. Now your extended leg, your toes should flex up towards the ceiling and your knee's going to point up to the ceiling. So you're rolling that leg outwards, right? Then you can keep your hands on the floor or hands in prayer. It's like a cool martial arts move. And then see from here with hands still in the center of the chest or on the floor, transition to your right leg. Move through center over to the other side. Then flex your left toes up to the ceiling. Right ball of foot you'll be balancing on, unless you can keep your heel down, which is quite tough. Good. And you can have hands in prayer or hands on the floor. And then now turn to the back of your mat, so you turn towards your right leg, into a lunge facing the other side of your mat. And then back to plank and downward dog. This is a little vinyasa transition if you want to be fancy and move around your mat. Well done, and release. How does that feel?
Hard.
It's a massive stretch, right? Let's be honest. Where's it stretching?
Inner thigh.
Inner thighs.
Yeah.
What other poses? Okay, now I'm going to be challenging you. What other poses do we stretch our inner thighs in?
When you sit in an open leg forward fold.
Yes, open leg forward folds. Yes, Belinda, exactly like that. Yes. What else do we have our leg out to the side, externally rotated, and we're stretching our inner thigh?
The goddess.
Goddess pose, but the knees are bent. So yes, you are stretching your inner thighs a little bit. You're right. You're right. What else?
Maybe try.
Froggy? Which froggy? The froggy that you lie on your tummy with your legs out to the side? There's a few versions of froggy.
When you do it like this and then you push your knees.
Yeah, so malasana squat, absolutely. I think that would be easier, Celine, than with skandasana. But good, you're thinking totally along the right lines. What else? Nicole L.
This is a wild guess, but is it our it's a split. I don't know the name. We did.
That's okay. You can show us if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Nicole's doing a halfway split. So that one, you're mostly going to be stretching your hamstrings. Skandasana, we are stretching hamstrings as well as inner thighs. So you've got it, but when else is our leg out to the side like this? So that one, our legs are parallel, like warrior 3. Yeah. This one's more turned out. When else are we turned out in yoga? We do it a lot. Loads of poses.
Butterfly?
What was that? Butterfly? Yes, Belinda. But butterfly would be easier than skandasana. Hey, butterfly would actually prep you for skandasana. So now it's also like, okay, which one's harder? What other standing poses do we do?
Warrior 2.
Warrior 2, exactly. And what else follows with warrior 2? What do we normally do all together there?
Triangle?
Yes, triangle pose. So this skandasana would be such a good prep for triangle. Why?
It warms this up and stretches
Yes,
it. And
exactly. It warms it up. It's warming up your inner thighs and your hamstring muscles for poses that stretch those muscles more. Yes? So think about when you bind your leg and take it out to the side. You're stretching inner thighs. Think if you were doing bird of paradise. You'd be stretching inner thighs, right? So all those poses when your leg is out to the side, which means it's externally rotated, technical term, stretching inner thighs and hamstrings. Just planting the seeds. You'll do a lot of this kind of work, but it's nice just to slowly identify the difference in poses and what could be useful to prep for other poses, just on a very, very simple level, just scraping the surface. Okay, well done. Okay, moving on to our next pose. High lunge, also known as high crescent lunge. I call it high lunge. In the manual, it's crescent lunge. You can even say high crescent lunge. Again, Gary, it's a name thing. We have lots of names for these poses. Okay, so we do high lunge a lot in Vinyasa Yoga. And we're also going to talk a little bit about Warrior 1. What is the difference between those two pictures in your manual? What's the difference between high lunge and Warrior 1?
The back foot.
The back foot. And that back foot changes everything. Okay, so we're going to talk a lot about having that back foot down and what it changes in our back leg and our hips. Okay, so first of all, we've done high lunge a few times already today. I'm going to quickly demonstrate it for you and then you'll feel it as well. I'll do both at the same time just because we all kind of spoken about high lunge now. Spotlight. Oh, is it still on spotlight? Okay, so Again, I'm going to come from plank and downward dog so that when I step forwards, my knee is already over my ankle. I don't have to shuffle my feet. Boom, I've got the correct distance for high lunge. Does that make sense? So this is why we're always going from plank and downward dog so that when we step, everything is where it needs to be. Does that make sense? Okay, so this is one of those habits you're going to need to create. In my high lunge, before I even come up, and it's mostly a look thing, right? I'm going to try and stack my knee over my ankle. Now, you're not going to die if your knee goes past your ankle, right? Because we do when we walk downstairs. It's not preventing an injury. It's just making it easier to stack your joints is what we do a lot in yoga, all right? So we try to get our knee stacked over our ankle. So my front leg, my shin is vertical, and my thigh, I'm trying to bring parallel to the floor. Okay, so it looks sharp, punchy, and aligned. My back leg, strong and straight. Okay, on the ball of the back foot. Arms are coming up, and then like we did today in the class, I don't want to sink into my lower back. I want to try and lengthen up through the sides of the body, and high lunge is a bit of a back bend. Okay, so you can see I'm going to have a little bit of an arch in the back in high lunge. All right. It's the same in warrior one. So if I come for warrior one, I step forwards. This time I'm going to ground my back heel. I'm going to try and keep my knee above the ankle, but it's a bit harder here because my back foot is down. It's not going to be quite as accessible. It's not as easy. There's a lot more going on, okay? When I place that foot, I've tried not to cross my ankles. I'm trying to still have my feet hip distance apart. Okay, does that make sense? So my feet are like this. For some of us, taking more space, wider apart, feels better. So I'm going to ask you to play with that a bit. Now, I'm also in a back bend here. I'm also trying to keep here. What is different? What instructions have you heard about the hips in warrior one?
Facing forward.
No.
And how does that feel for you when you're doing warrior one and your back foot is on the floor? So I've grounded my back foot. Can you see my knee has turned out, right? Naturally, from high lunge to this, can you see what happened in the hip?
Mm-hmm.
If I want to put my foot down, my hip changes. Is it now possible for me to turn my hips to the front with my back foot down?
No.
No. So it's one of those instructions given a lot and is not really possible unless you have like ridiculous hips going on here that you can have super flexible hips, then you can do that. For most of us, from high lunge, we can have our hips pointing forwards, all good, because my toes are pointing forwards, right? As soon as you want my toes to turn out to the side, my hips have opened a bit. So warrior one, my hips are going to be a little open. I'm going to try and turn my chest towards the front, but my hips are a little bit to the side. Mm-hmm. And I want you to feel that. It's one of those big things that we hear a lot in yoga that isn't relevant to instruct. And I want you to feel when you try and square your hips, what it does to your ankle and what it does to your back knee. And maybe even your lower back. And if it's something we should be encouraging. Let's feel, right? Because you need to feel it for yourself. And then argue with me if you want. Let's go from plank, downward dog. Okay, so I've brought you in from plank and downward dog. So now when you step forwards with your right foot, your knee should be stacked over your ankle. Kaboom, you're already in place. Can you see why we do it this way? Yes? Inhale, arms up, high lunge. Okay, so Celine, you need to take your legs wider. Come from plank down dog again. Yes. So that when you squat, when you lunge rather, your knee, you're trying to get over your ankle. Back leg is straight. So Wendy, straighten that back knee. Straighten the back knee. Yes. Lunge deep in that front leg. Try and keep your back leg straight. Nice, Gudrun. Yes. Arms up overhead. Can you feel you're in a little bit of a back bend here? You just are. It just is because your back leg is behind you. Okay. So high lunge is a bit of a back bend. Reach up through your arms like we did in the class today. If you reach up higher, you can bend back more, and you can use this as a prep pose for back bends. Take it into a back bend. Go for it. The more you reach up, the easier it is to back bend. Wow, Wilma, that's amazing. Okay, come back upright, and then put your hands on the floor. Step back into plank, downward dog. Okay, that looked great. So plank, down dog, we've made sure we're still in the correct stance. Step forwards with your left foot. Before you come up, is your left knee stacked over your left ankle? Is your back leg straight? Keep stay on the ball of the foot now, Chloe, for high lunge, and then inhale, arms up.
Do you tuck your
No, you're not going to tuck your tailbone limb. You're going to embrace the back bend. Let your pelvis be neutral. Straighten your back leg, and you'll feel you're a little bit arched in your back. Can you feel that? And that's all right. Now straighten your arms fully, Lynn. Reach up through your arms. Fully extend. Reach up, reach up, reach up, and a little bit backwards because it's a back bend, right? The more you lift your ribs away from your hips, the easier it is to back bend without getting crunchy in your lower back. Can you feel the difference of that? Mm-hmm. For a moment, just sink into your back like you're melting slouch. Can you feel it stickier in your lower back? And it reduces your ability to back bend. Yeah? The more you reach up, the more you can bend back, if that's what you wanted to do. Okay, now stay here in your high lunge. Put your hands on your hips. Ground your back heel and feel what happens in your hips when you go into warrior one. Ground your back heel, warrior one. Naturally, what happened?
The hips move that way.
Your hips move with your leg because they're kind of attached, right? And then go back into high lunge on the ball of the back foot. Then your hips can point forwards, right? And then go back into warrior one. Your pelvis and your back leg move together. Now stay in warrior one. If you need to adjust your feet at all, Roxy, turn your back foot in a little bit. Your back foot's a bit too turned out. You're almost in warrior two. Yeah. Good. Now here, keep your back heel down and try and turn your hips to the front. We know it's not really possible. What happens to your back knee?
It's collapsing.
It doesn't feel so good here. It's doing all sorts of bad stuff. Would you agree? Because your pelvis can't actually move, you're now starting to try and twist at your knee, which your knee doesn't really do. So if we do warrior one, don't try and square the hips. They are going to be a little bit open. That's normal. Let's feel it properly. Come back to plank, downward dog, and then we'll step into warrior one. Okay. Whew. Those legs are working today. Let's go. Step forward to the right foot. Then ground your back heel. Now, before you even come up, just have a look at your back foot. If it comes down, do you need to shuffle it a little bit wider? Do you need to turn? It's quite an awkward position. I want you to put the back heel down and see, are your heels in line with each other, or can you keep your feet mostly hip distance apart? Then inhale, arms up. Okay, so now we know the hips aren't going to turn to the front, so don't even worry about that. Just reach up through your arms. Now take your back foot, so it's your left foot, take it wider, almost off to the edge of the mat. So I can see Gary very nicely here. Gary, turn your chest towards me and bring your left foot further towards, I think it's the cupboard next to you there, almost off your mat, towards the, yes. So you've gone wider. Can you feel how that creates a bit more space? It might or might not feel better for you.
Yeah, it feels better. Feels easier.
So encouraging a little bit more width between your feet can sometimes feel more comfortable, because warrior one is awkward, okay? It's an awkward pose for some, not everyone. Okay, let's experiment. We're playing with that. And I'll come back into plank down dog. Let's feel it on the other side. You almost start to look like you, some of you starting to look like you're in warrior two. Okay, let's feel it on the left. Step your left foot forwards between your hands. Ground your right heel. And then come up to standing. Just see how that feels. Okay, if it feels like, if it's hard to put your heel down, or it feels hard to lunge in your front knee, then shuffle your right foot wider, almost off your mat, wider out to the side of the mat. And then notice if that helps you to lunge deeper into the legs, or maybe it's easier to ground your back heel. It might not. I'm just giving you options here. Now turn your shoulders back to the front of the mat. So Wilma, you've gone into warrior two now. Your shoulders are still pointing forwards to the front leg. Arms up. Like you do in high lunge. Chloe, you've also gone into warrior two. Arms up, and your chest is pointing still forwards. Like high lunge with your back heel down. Yes. Yes. Reach up through your arms and lift your chest. And then let's release, and I'm sure we've got a lot to discuss there. Gary, that actually looks really nice with your foot wider. It's just easy for me to see because Gary's pointing towards my screen so I can see his stance of legs, and that made a big difference. So what was going on there, when I was saying, so this is my high lunge, right? And then I ground my back heel. And if you take this back foot out wider, can you see I like almost like diagonal? It makes it sometimes easier to lunge. And because it's quite an awkward pose with the hips a little bit open and the back foot down, and you're trying to have your shoulders pointing forwards, sometimes taking your feet wider, even though one foot is forwards and one leg is back, can sometimes make it more comfortable. That's probably really complicated. Tell me what you think.
I've been told to sometimes pull the back leg closer in.
Yes, Lynn. So that is also an option. You can also narrow the stance a bit. Yes, that is absolutely an option. So you're not in as wide of a lunge. You can be a little bit closer. How else do you guys
put less strain on the knee?
Yes, Jamie. Do you feel a lot of strain on the knee?
Myself, no, but to narrow the stance, is that to put less strain on the knee?
It depends on the person and the shape of their leg. Sometimes less strain, sometimes more strain. It's not really one of those black or white things that you can just say one or the other. So what I would like is for all of you to kind of experiment and see what works for you. Keeping the legs wide, or maybe stepping in a little bit, not like a huge amount. Having the feet like this, or having them wider. What helps you to be able to reach up through your arms and lift your chest and maintain quite a decent lunge in the front leg? You'll feel that you can't lunge quite as deep. Jamie, in this pose, the more of the issues with the back knee is when people try and square the hips and then they get that like torque in the knee. So in my experience, if we just keep the hips kind of natural, that helps with the knee. Yeah. And it kind of depends if stepping in or out a little bit makes a difference with the knee. But we definitely don't want to feel funny knee stuff. Roxy, who was it? Do you have the crazy hyperextended knees?
Yeah, it's me.
So when Roxy does this pose, I mean, it's quite tricky for the knees. How are you feeling? Because that back knee is like hyperextending. It can feel very sticky. How are you doing?
Yeah, fine. I felt that the minute the stance is actually too wide apart, I feel like then I've got too much flexibility, so it makes it worse for my knees. So I actually prefer the smaller stance just because it's more like structure for me. Else my legs then I just feel like they're gonna split.
Giving you too much range.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're all so different. So you have to fiddle with this. And then when I see you all individually, I can see you all a lot better. Nicole, did you have a question there?
I do. In my yoga class or my practice that I'm used to, they always say for warrior one, have a shorter, wider stance. But I found the transition that we did from the transition that we did now, putting our leg back out very wide, it was really different to having a shorter, wider stance. I wasn't sure, are you supposed to move it closer or not? I think you might have just answered this already. It's different for everyone.
It's different for everyone.
Just...
Yeah, so it really depends. So for me, I feel better wider. For a lot of people, you feel a little bit better shorter. So you're going to have to just explore this. And this is why in a vinyasa class, I find it's easier just to teach high lunge. Because we got all the same benefits of the pose, right? We're getting the lunge, we're getting the arms up, we're getting a little back bend without all the drama of Warrior One. So I make my life easier and just teach high lunge. What is the advantage of having your back heel down in Warrior One as opposed to high lunge?
Maybe for balance?
Exactly, Micah. It's easier to balance. That's pretty much the only advantage. It's a bit more stable. Where high lunge has loads of other advantages, you're able to keep your hips pointing forwards, which is nicer to do with that little back bend. And your back knee and your foot are nice and straight, so everything is kind of pointing in the same direction, but it's a little harder to balance. And I think in yoga, we want to practice balance and we want to do a lot of balancing poses to get better at balancing. So I don't think it's a negative thing, but it is a little bit less stable. That's pretty much the only advantage to Warrior One. Michelle, you got your hand up.
What are we supposed to be achieving? Strengthening or stretching what muscle or muscles? And then I'll know what is better for me. Because I felt like when I had my foot flat and at 45 degrees, I really felt it in my hip flexor. Is that what I'm supposed to be? Is that where I'm supposed to be feeling?
Yes. You're supposed to feel a hip flexor stretch for both versions. So in high lunge and Warrior One, you're feeling your front leg is in a lunge, so your quads are working. Your back leg is gone behind you, so we call that hip extension. So hip flexors and quads are stretching. Okay. And then the arm, the spinal position in this pose is a little bit of a back bend. So it's a great thing to do for prepping for back bends. And the reason why we do this pose a lot of the time is one leg is forwards and one leg is back. So it resembles a lot of other peak poses, like both the poses we've done together now. Warrior Three, one leg forward, one leg back. So I like to use high lunge. Could have also used Warrior One to prep for that. Today we did pigeon, one leg forwards, one leg back. So it resembled those same shapes.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Okay. So for me, I prefer high lunge and I teach it in my classes because it's just easier than fiddling with the back foot. But I want you all to explore Warrior One over this next week and feel what feels best for you so that when we do our review, we can just check in with each other, okay? Both of them are in your assessment. We will be doing both of the poses. Okay.
May I ask another question?
Yes.
Just with the crescent lunge, what would the main difference between being high on your toes and trying to flatten that back foot? Would that just flattening the back foot would just bring you deeper into the stretch of the hip flexor and the quad?
Yeah. So, and it also depends. So you're talking about your back foot being high on the ball of the foot and trying to press your back heel down.
Yes. I find myself more stable when I push my back foot down. In terms of the muscles aren't like complaining as much.
That's perfect. I mean, I think when you do that, when you push your back heel down, you almost transfer some weight off the front leg and a little bit more into the back leg.
I do try keep that angle of the front knee still like 90 degrees.
But it's one of those subtle things of that slight shift in weight. And I think that's perfectly fine. It's good to feel that balance between both. I think it depends a lot to do with ankle flexibility, how wide your legs are, and also if you can. But that's perfectly fine. Whatever helps you to get a good stretch in that hip flex and quad is probably the main reason for this pose. So that's great.
So going into it deeper obviously would make it more effective or more difficult.
Yes, Depending on what you want from the pose. Like today, what I wanted from the pose is a little bit of a back bend. So I'm kind of encouraged the lifting aspect of the pose.
Yeah.
Where if we were going into full splits, I would want you deep and low in that lunge. So I guess you can emphasize different aspects of the pose depending on what you're doing it for.
I suppose the deeper in you go, also naturally the back will sink more and arch more. Whereas if you're high on that back foot, then the spine is just naturally lengthened.
Exactly. So emphasizing different qualities of that pose is great. And you can do both. You can start by being really upright, getting all that lift, and then descend into a nice low lunge. And then even there you could feel shifting forwards and back and feeling how that changes the pose. Did we answer your question?
Yes.
I have another question.
We got a tangent and then I forget why we were originally doing. Okay. Are we all good with that? Michelle?
You're giving us a lot of teaching points and instruction, which I love. I'm curious to know, is this how you would teach a normal class, or is this your teacher training teaching?
This is teacher training teaching. So a lot of the time, because when we teach, we can't just, students that come from sitting at a desk all day, they come to yoga, they just want to breathe and move. They don't want to be shouted at with instructions, right? So I'm giving you a lot of information, and I wouldn't normally give a class like this. Normally 3 cues per pose is the magic number.
Okay.
And for you guys, I'm teaching different. We talk about external rotation and all these things, which I would never talk about in a normal class. So I think it's finding that balance of explaining what you're doing, but also not getting too technical because they don't care.
Right.
They just want to move. It's a good point you bring up. Okay, so I'm going to move on now if we're happy. Okay, and then maybe are you guys surviving? Do we need a little break after this? Yes. Okay, I'm going to do one more pose and then we'll take a quick break. Okay. So next pose is low lunge and lizard pose. Okay. So I'm going to demonstrate these 2 poses for you, and then you'll give them a bash and let me know what you think. So again, I'm going to come from plank, downward facing dog. I'm going to step forwards between the hands. So you've got lots of option of low lunge. I can be low lunge with my back leg straight. Okay. And I can also do low lunge with my back knee down. Okay. It's going to have a little bit of a different effect in the stretch. And it kind of just depends what you're doing here. Do you want to do a twist with the back leg straight, or do you want to lunge and hold your back foot? Depending on your class, maybe you'll emphasize one or the other. Okay. In low lunge, look what happens to the chest. If I put my hands flat, because my arms aren't very long, your chest tends to drop. Can you see that? If you're on your fingertips, you can keep your chest lifted. Okay, and the spine straight. So a lot of the time we'll pop up onto the fingertips to keep the lift in the chest. Okay, we're going to do this version with arms up with the back bend when we teach the back bends. Okay, so we'll do another version later on. In this low lunge, good stretch for hip flexors and quads once again, and we're trying to keep the knee over the ankle exactly the same as in high lunge. Okay, lizard pose. When we come into lizard, I step my foot to the outside of my hand. Can you see that? So my foot is wider. And again, in lizard, I can have back leg straight or back knee down. It depends what you want to teach, who you're teaching, or leave it optional. Okay. In lizard, I can squeeze my knee up against the shoulder. Maybe because I'm teaching crow pose, we'll feel that tomorrow. And I want you to know where your knee is going to be placed. Or if I'm teaching a big external rotation hip class, I would say let your leg open out to the side in lizard, right? And of course, as you'll probably know, you could also come onto your elbows or stay up on your hands. Knee in or knee out. You've got loads of options. Depends on what you're doing it for. Would refine those variations. That make sense? Let's give it a go. Come from plank. downward facing dog. Step your right foot forwards between your hands for low lunge. Pop up onto your fingertips. Notice how that lifts your chest. Okay. Place your back knee down. See how that feels? And then straighten your back leg again. With your back leg straight, it's more active. It's more kind of strength orientated, right? When your back knee comes down, you don't have to work as hard. A little bit more focused and stretching. You should feel a good stretch across your back hip flexor. Celine, bring your right knee more forwards, love. Knee stacked over ankle. Try and get those stacks. So be wide in your lunge, Celine. Front leg needs to go forwards more. Let's try again from plank down dog. Can you feel when you put your hands flat on the floor, your chest kind of drops, right? And if you go onto your fingertips, your chest lifts. Okay, so it makes quite a big difference in what your hands are doing. Depends what you want from the pose. I like fingertips. And let's go hands flat on the floor, back into downward dog. And then we'll do lizard on the other side. So let's bring the left foot to the outside of the left hand. Okay, so it's a wider step. Good. Now back leg can be straight or back knee can be on the floor. Feel the difference for you. You might like one more than the other. Okay. Now squeeze your left knee up against your shoulder. So you're squeezing and working your inner thighs. Good for teaching arm balances. We'll explore that. And then lift your left knee open wide out to the side. So your big toe will almost lift off the floor. Can you feel the stretch more in your inner groin and inner thigh? It's made it more stretchy for the inner leg. Depends what you're teaching. There's a lot we can do from this pose. Come back to middle and then option to go into your elbows. This might not work for everyone. If it feels very tight and uncomfortable, you might prefer staying on your hands. And again, back leg can be straight, back leg can be bent. Okay, and then walk back up onto your hands. Straighten your back leg, tuck the toes, step back plank, downward dog, release. That is your low lunge and your lizard pose. Tell me what you think.
Makes it so hard to go down on the arms and lizard.
It does.
Where's the
restriction? Where some people love it. And it just totally depends on what body you're in and what bone structure you're dealing with, right? Natalie?
I was just wondering about when we put our knee on the ground, does our foot then go flat? We untuck it.
Good question. And this comes up a lot. Whatever feels best for your back knee. You can have your back foot but toes tucked. Sometimes that feels more stable. Mm-hmm. Or you can make your foot flat on the floor, so you're resting on the top of the floor. Whatever feels best for you. It's not going to make a huge difference in the pose, but it does make a difference sometimes for your knee. Like if your knee feels a little bit dodgy, one might feel better than the other, and whatever is better for you.
Perfect.
Cool.
Laura?
Yes.
The runner's lunge.
Yes, runner's lunge lizard. Yes. Exact same thing. Again, we have many names for all these poses. If you're happy with that, let's take a quick break. Can we meet back at 1:15? So you're all fresh.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, please ask. If you need a break, go for it. Quick question, please go.
I just wanted to ask regarding the low lunge, usually when you have your knee down, what the difference is between having your back toes flat or toes tucked and when you would use each.
So this is what Natalie was asking as well. So Jamie, you feel when you do it, most of the time it's not going to make a huge difference to the overall pose, but it does make a difference on how it feels with weight resting on your kneecap. So I always say whatever feels best for you. Some people prefer toes tucked because they can push off the toe and take a little bit of weight off the knee when that feels better. Where others prefer to have the top of the foot flat on the floor. So leave it as a personal preference.
Okay, so it's just about the pressure on the knees.
Exactly, exactly. Some people make no difference at all. I tend to do one thing on one side and a different thing on the other side. It's not going to make a huge difference in the actual lunge and the hips, but the knees it can make a big difference for, especially like that floating patella moving around there. If you've got knee sensitivity, one or the other might feel more comfortable.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Sorry, I missed that. I must have.
All good. Okay. Are you all good? Well, I see you in 15 minutes. Quick loo break.
One more thing. Can you hurt your ankles in lizard? Because it's not so much my knees that are sore, but my ankles.
In which version, Celine? When you turn your foot out to the side?
When you put your ankle on the floor, like that. I feel like it's a lot of strain on my ankles.
Your front ankle?
The back one.
The back ankle. So maybe, Celine, for you, maybe this is the chance you're going to see it, Jamie. Tuck your toes of the back foot. Does that feel more comfortable and stable for your ankle?
Yeah. If it's like this, it feels like it's good.
Yeah. So then for you, Celine, keep your toes tucked if that feels better for you.
So it's just a flexibility with some people and okay.
Okay.
I see. So it's just about the ankle flexibility.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just interested in these things because I think I'm particularly flexible and particularly strong. So obviously in order to instruct like beginners, I would just like to know how it would work for them, because for me, I don't feel the difference really.
That's very good, Jamie. Very mindful of you. And please just ask away. Go for it. Because it's so important for us, because if you're strong and don't have these issues, you can't sympathize with your students that might have them. So I think it's great that we all share our experience of the pose so we can learn as much as we can from each other. Strong bodies, weaker bodies, flexy bodies, tighter bodies, we're all having completely different experiences within the same pose.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to quickly dash to the loo. See you in a second.
Quite like it actually.
Okay, how are we doing?
Good.
Still with me?
Still with you.
Oh, good. Your bodies might feel a little bit tired after this.
Pen.
Okay, the next 3 poses are really important. Okay, they are fairly big standing poses. We do them all the time, and we teach them a lot to our beginners. And I expect you all to look pretty good in them for your assessment, okay? So we're going to be going through warrior 2, triangle pose, and side angle pose. They all flow quite nicely together. So we'll talk about it now. There's a lot I want to discuss with them, so I'm going to jump right in. Hopefully we're all back. Alrighty, we're recording. Okie dokie, so we're on page 54 in your manual, and we're going to discuss warrior 2. So we did it in the class today. Again, I'm going to come from plank, downward dog, because you know why now. When I step forward, my feet are in the correct position. Okay, so first of all, placement of our feet for the next 3 poses are all the same. My right foot is turned out 90 degrees, pointing off to the side, right? And my left foot is turned inwards a little bit. Can you see that? The alignment of my feet, my right heel is in line with the instep, the arch of my back foot. So if I had a line through the middle of my mat, my heel and the middle of my left foot, the arch, are going to be in one straight line. So if you see that from the side, I'm just going to do a shorter stance. They're like that. So front foot is turned out 90 degrees, back foot is turned in, and the heel and the arch of my back foot are in one straight line. Is that clear? Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Okay. So that's our standard yogi foot position. Okay? And you'll notice now, because you come from plank and downward dog, your stance is going to feel quite wide. Okay? And there's a lot of reasons why that is very helpful for us. And we'll get to that next. So I'm going to bend into warrior 2. And again, like high lunge, I'm trying to bring my knee over my ankle, so my shin is vertical, and my thigh parallel to the floor. So almost got like a 90-degree angle here in the front leg. Okay. What we want in this front leg, what is this leg doing? Is it parallel? What is it?
Should be pointing the front.
Yeah. So what is my hip doing?
Turning out.
Yes, it's turned out. It's externally rotated. So that is a huge, Michelle always asks, what is the reason why we're doing this? What is the point? This is a huge element to this pose. We are externally rotating the front leg. So when you're in warrior 2, you need to press your right thigh outwards. Yes? So your knee isn't rolling forwards like this. You're pressing your thigh out, and you're externally rotating the hip. So again, what muscles are being stretched?
Yeah, adductors.
Adductors, your inner thighs. Okay, so that's what we want from our front leg. Our back leg is straight. And now my back toes are turned in. So what does that mean for my hips? What cues have you heard before? And what can we see now from warrior 1? When our back foot is down, what happens to the hips?
They
open up.
So this is one of those big things you're going to feel, and we're going to discuss. If I turn my hips to point towards you now, what's happened to my right knee?
Move in.
And because my back foot is turned in, my hips are following the line of my foot, right? Because they're all attached. So when I place my foot down, naturally, my hips are pointing slightly forwards. If I try and turn my hips to the side, like you hear a lot in yoga classes, I've lost my external rotation of my front leg. Okay, you'll need to feel this to understand what I mean, okay? So we're gonna feel that in a sec. Lastly, I'm gonna let my hips be natural, okay? This is gonna feel strange because I know you've all done it the other way, and I want you to just play with this and tell me how it feels. I'm gonna bring my shoulders above my hips, like you felt in the class this morning. Often we hear, you'll feel you need to lean towards your back foot a bit to stack your shoulders above your hips. You might even have to look down, okay? Arms out to the sides, horizontal. Often the back arm is veering off doing something weird. Make sure the arms are parallel to the floor. Gaze is over my front hand. I'm lengthening through the waist, stacking shoulders above hips, arms parallel, drishti forwards. Okay, let's feel this because there's a very big sensation I want you to feel in the hips. Okay, and you'll feel it more in triangle pose coming next, but let's just plant the seed. Plank downward dog. So now you're also going to feel getting into these poses from your wider downward dog. If you're not used to this, it might feel a little different. Step your right foot forwards between your hands. Come up through a high lunge if you wish, and then ground your back heel for warrior two. Turn your shoulders to the side of your mat. Okay. So now, first of all, let's look at your feet. Your right foot is pointing forwards to the front of the mat, and your back foot is turned in slightly, about 30 degrees. Not a lot, but it's turned in, right? Look at your right heel. It should be in line with the left arch of your foot. If you had a line running down the middle of your mat, your front heel and your back arch would be in one straight line. Roxy, turn your back foot in a little bit more. If that's okay for the knee. Yeah. Good, good, good. All right. And now straighten your legs. Just stand for a moment. Just stand and relax. Like straighten your legs and just relax. Look at your hips. Put your hands on your hips. What have they naturally done? Are they pointing to the side or are they pointing slightly forwards?
Slightly forward.
Slightly forwards because that's natural, right? Okay. And if you try to turn your hips towards the side now, notice what happens in your right knee. Just with the legs straight. If you try and turn your hips, just square your hips to the side of the mat. How does it feel there, Natalie? I can see you feeling. It feels a bit torqued, right? It feels a bit funny. It pulls the knee. Okay, I want you to be mindful of that sensation. Now, if you just relax, just stand like with your legs in the spine. Can you feel how your hips naturally are pointing slightly towards the front? It was like on a diagonal, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is what I'm going to say is called natural hip position. Okay. Now, bend your right knee and come into warrior two. Now, look at your right knee and really press your thigh outwards. Press your thigh out towards the right. Okay, because we want to externally rotate the hip. That's the purpose of the pose, right? Bend your right knee so knee stacks over ankle. Yes, your thighs are working, I know. Now, just indulge me. Try and turn your hips to the side. What happens to your right knee?
Yeah, moves.
You may have lost your external rotation because you're trying to square your hips. For what reason would we want to square our hips?
I wouldn't.
I'm just questioning. We'll talk about it in a sec. Okay, come back into warrior three. Don't worry about your hips. Let your hips just be normal and push your right thigh out into external rotation. Now look at your shoulders. Stack your shoulders above your hips. Look at your arms. Are they even on each side? You might feel that you have to lean back a little bit. And then look over your right hand. And Wilma, lunge deeper into those legs. Yes, beautiful. All right, when will your arms come back to plank down dog? Legs are working. All right, let's feel it on the left side. Step your left foot forwards between your hands. Turn to the side of your mat. Ground your right foot in 30 degrees. Just turned in a little bit. Open your arms out to the side so you're facing the side of your mat. bend your left knee so that your left knee stacks over your ankle and press your left thigh outwards. Externally rotate that left hip. Good. Keep your hips natural. If I didn't tell you to square your hips, you wouldn't, right? Unless you're doing it out of habit now. Now look at your shoulders. Lean back a little bit to stack your shoulders over your hips. Lengthen your waist as if you're lifting your ribs away from your hips. Extend your arms evenly out to the side and gaze over your left hand. Good. Lunge deeper, Celine. Yes, lunge deep. Get into those legs. And then windmill your arms, come back into downward facing dog. Okay. So most of all, we feel that in a wider stance, okay? Maybe a bit wider than what you're used to, so that your knee could stack over your ankle and that your thigh could become parallel to the mat. So we have that like 90-degree shape, right? Could you feel the difference there being wider? You can talk to me now. How did that feel? Maybe different? Maybe uncomfortably wide if it's something you're not used to?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's going to be one of the things I'll need you to practice is these poses, always from plank downward dog, to come into them with a wider stance. Because they will link better, they transition better, and when you windmill your arms back into plank down dog, your back foot is already there. You're not having to shuffle your feet the whole time. And it works better with this linking of poses. Would you agree?
Yeah.
It's different.
One of the things that your heel in the arch of your back foot, I thought it was heel to heel, not heel to arch.
Yeah. So Lynn, that's again, if it felt better for you to be heel to heel, go for it. For most of us, this is easier to balance heel to arch. Unless for a particular reason that it was better for you, then you always do what's better for you. It's different styles of yoga. So Ashtanga yoga, they like heel to heel. Iyengar yoga, they like heel to arch. Again, there's these crossovers of all the different yoga styles. We're going to say generally for beginners, it's easier to do heel to arch, easier to balance. And easier in a few other ways. Unless you felt better heel to heel, then you do what's best for your body. But for beginners, it's actually easier heel to arch.
I would expect it to be the other way though, because if you're widening your stance, then you're more stable and balance would be better. If your heel is, So
something to explore. Try both and see what works for you. So you'll also find, try both because we're all different. And sometimes it's like, sometimes if your feet are wider or broader or longer, one will feel different than the other. As a general rule, heel to arch, you might find also when you step forwards and then you rotate the heel down, naturally when we transition, we come to this heel to arch stance from being on the ball of the foot and then put that heel down. It's quite hard to get heel to heel alignment. But for some, maybe that works better. And I'm not saying it's one's wrong and what's right. Do what's best for you. Try both.
It might just make the front knee want to roll in a bit more, I suppose. Maybe that's it.
Yeah. Try, Jamie, and let us know what you think.
Okay.
Any other questions about Jamie experiments over there?
Can you spotlight her?
She's out the camera. She'll let us know her results.
So the results were that there was no difference for me.
It's probably like 2 centimeters, right?
Yeah, if even.
But you never know.
Tiny feet anyway.
You have little feet.
Yeah.
Okay, as a general rule, heel to arch, but whatever works for you is also fine. Okay. Could you feel with the hip thing there, as soon as you try to square your hips to the side, your front knee rolled forwards?
Yeah.
Okay, so by doing that, we lose the whole purpose of the pose is to keep the front leg externally rotated, right? And knees over ankle is what we're kind of looking for. Keeping the knee tracking over the toes like we felt in Goddess. So I'm going to say no more square your hips to the side of the room. Okay, and I know if you've been doing this for a long time, you might feel some resistance here, and that's okay. I was very resistant to it. I was trained with a very strict Iyengar teacher that used to put us against the wall and force our hips straight. I do have a lot of pelvic sacrum issues now because it's an unnatural movement, right? And I'm saying do what your body naturally does. It's very well designed. Okay, I won't rant on too much. Any other questions with Warrior 2? You're going to practice that? Yes, Micah. And then we'll come to you, Chloe.
What do you feel about tuck the tailbone in Warrior 2? Because I hear that quite a lot because my back is quite arched because I have a hollow back. So I always hear tuck the tailbone. It doesn't feel good at all.
So when we tuck the tailbone, we're changing the alignment of the pelvis and the hips and everything. So Micah, can you do the pose for us, please? I'm going to spotlight you. And can you do it to this side? So yes, like as you're standing now.
Okay.
Yes, like that. If you can just step your legs just quickly into a Warrior 2. So Micah, what I would rather say to you if you have a very hollow back, arms out to the side into Warrior 2, instead tuck your tailbone. Let's see what it looks like. Can you see what it's doing to her body? Maybe not the best look. Okay, be natural, just relax, just be normal. Okay, if you were standing with your ribs popping out, which I feel like you don't actually do at all, I think you look fantastic, but if you exaggerate the arch in your back, if you had a hollow back, yes. Okay, if it was like this, I would say bring your ribs in a little bit. Yes, so we adjust from the ribs rather than the pelvis. Okay, because your pelvis is the legs, and if you tuck your tailbone again, yeah, it looks strange and can feel a bit funny, I know. So natural pelvis, ribs in if you need to, which I don't think you do.
All right, thanks.
Okay, good question. So this happens a lot in yoga, especially the very bendy, gymnastic, dancey girls. Their ribs are always forwards like this. And we want to say tuck, but what is actually better is just to say bring your ribs in. And it fixes the problem without the whole pelvis thing. Okay, it's a quick fix and it works very well. And Chloe, you had a question. Thanks, Micah. I can't hear you, Chloe. Still can't hear you. Do you want to type your... Oh, okay, muted, unmute. Any luck? No. Will you type for us? Any other questions on Warrior 2? So I'm going to be checking your leg stance, that you're nice and wide, so that when you squat, lunge down, your knee and ankle are coming into that 90-degree shape as much as possible if there's no discomfort in your knee, okay? I'm also going to be checking, are your shoulders stacked over your hips? That you're not leaning forwards like this? That your body is upright, okay? And that your arms aren't doing anything funky, that they're out to the side. So those are the big points there, as well as externally rotating that front thigh. These are important poses. For me, these feel like you're going to teach these a lot to your beginner students. You need to demonstrate them well. So I'm going to be very strict and nasty on these ones, okay? Okay, when we'll just wait for Chloe's question. Okay, so Chloe is asking about the outer edge of the back foot in Warrior 2. Fantastic question, Chloe. So the back foot is turned in a little bit, about 30 degrees. And yes, Chloe, you want to press down through the baby toe side of the foot, so that your inner arch of your foot is not collapsing and rolling forwards. So Chloe is going to do the pose. We can't quite see your feet, Chloe, but yes. And I'm going to spotlight you. So Chloe is going to press down through the outer edge of her foot so that her inner ankle isn't dropping forwards. Yes. And Chloe, just show us the opposite. If you didn't push down through the baby toe side of the foot, we wouldn't want that, right? So we're pressing, and it feels funny in the hip. So we're pushing the baby toes down. She's getting a lovely lunge and externally rotating that leg. And then the last thing I would say, Chloe, is lean back slightly. So lean to the left a bit. Yes, now her shoulders are stacking over the hips. Now lift your ribs away from your hips. Lengthen through your waist. Oh, gorgeous. And look at her beautiful warrior two. Thanks, Chloe. Gorgeous. So pressing through the back edge of the foot is a fantastic activation to not roll through your arch of your back foot. And there's so many things I could say about these poses and all the little refinements. But now I just want you to get the big components of the pose, and then we'll refine. Sound good? Okay. Yes, Chloe, I hope we can hear your voice soon. So I'm going to talk next about triangle pose, Trikonasana. Okay. So this is a fantastic pose to feel the natural hip positions that I was talking about. So again, always plank, down dog, stepping forwards, opening out to the side. Exact same foot position. Front foot out 90 degrees, back foot in, heel is in line with the arch of the back foot. Okay, same as warrior two. From here, remember how you felt when you were upright like this and you just relaxed, how your hips are pointing this way, right? So this is what we're going to encourage to do. But I want you to feel just one more time, if I were to square my hips, can you see how they're pointing to you now? And then I try and bend. I actually can't fold from my hip. All I'm doing is I'm laterally flexing from my spine. Can you see that? So it's very restrictive and I can't get very low. I'm never going to put my hand on the floor this way, okay? If I just relax, okay, my hips have turned a little bit off to the side. Now I can fold from my hip. Can you see the difference? I'm not even moving my spine yet. All I'm doing is folding from the hip. And because we have a huge amount of movement from the hip, I can go as low as I want. Okay, so that's a big thing I want you to feel in your triangle. So here in my triangle, this hip is pointing a little bit like this. It's not open towards you, because then look what's happened to my spine. Can you see that? It's gone like into like a side bend. When I let this back hip just relax and be normal, can you see how the sides of my body are almost parallel to the floor? Yeah? Because I've let my left hip roll forwards a bit, I'm then able to lengthen my spine more in my triangle pose. That my waist, I'm trying to make it even on both sides. So I'm not like this. I'm trying to lengthen the bottom waist. So sometimes, and I'll get you to feel it, you can place your hand under your bottom rib. And instead of shortening your bottom rib up towards the ceiling, I'm going to lengthen my bottom rib away. So I'm trying to make my bottom waist longer. Okay. You might be up a little bit higher because hamstrings and inner thighs are also at play here. Of course, if you have long hamstrings or inner thighs, it's easier to come lower. But wherever you are, higher up or lower down, we're going to try and lengthen through the bottom side of the body. Okay? Wrap the bottom shoulder back and down, so it's not like this. Shoulder back, top arm up. Okay? Now, you don't have to look up at the ceiling. It often creates quite a bit of tension in the neck. Looking forwards is perfect. I always say the golden rule, neck in line with the spine. Okay? You want to give it a go? We'll start with that. There's more I want to say, but let's just start there. Come to plank, down dog. Okay, we'll go together and then I'm going to highlight some more points before we do the left side. From downward dog. Go first from plank, down dog, correct. Make sure your stance is nice and wide. Step your right foot forwards between the hands. Ground the back foot, just come up to standing. Check your feet. Is your right foot turned out 90 degrees? Back foot is turned in slightly. Just relax. What are your hips doing? Natural. Yes? Okay, now let's feel it the wrong way. Place your hands on your hips and turn your hips to the side. Okay, firstly, already you might have felt a tweak in your right leg and knee down there. Okay, be strict now. We're doing it the wrong way, just so you can feel. With your hips pointing to the side of the mat, arms out, try and bend to the right. But don't move your hips, keep them pointing to the side. Can you move very much? Can you feel you're doing most of the movement from your ribs and your upper body, right? Come back up. Now just relax. Literally relax so your pelvis moves into a natural position. You'll notice your left hip has moved forwards a bit, right? You put your hands on your hips, your left foot is forwards of your right hip. Okay? Now, fold down. Can you feel how you're folding from your pelvis now? You're folding from your hip. Is it easier?
Yeah.
Okay, and with that as well, it helps you maintain that length in your bottom waist. So now take your left hand and put it underneath your ribs of the right. And now see if you can lengthen your ribs away from you so that you're lengthening your waist on both sides. Your hand can be on your shin. It can be hovering if you like to do that. It's a little bit harder. Or your hand can be on the floor if your hamstrings are really long. Okay. Come up for a moment. How did that feel in the hips and the legs? And then I'm going to talk about the rest of it in a second.
Better.
Better? It's going to feel different because if you've been doing it with your hips turning to the side, it's going to feel different. Do you understand why we are allowing the hips to be in their natural position? Can you feel the benefit?
Yeah, because
have I convinced you? Otherwise, argue away. I don't mind.
It's almost like you have to pop that back hip out.
Yeah. When your hips
like really
are straight.
push into it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want you to practice this a lot over the next week. We're going to do the left side in a second. Allowing your hips to be natural and noticing how that helps you to lengthen your spine and it helps you to go down. Otherwise, you're never going to put your hand on the floor if you keep your hips pointing to the side. Unless you can pop your hips out the socket and do weird stuff. Okay. Nicole.
I didn't feel any difference when I try to push or when I put my hand under my ribs and try to.
I'll emphasize now that a little bit more, Nicole.
Do I need to talk louder?
No, you're great. I can hear you perfectly.
Because I don't feel any difference.
Okay. So this is also normal. Nicole, your hamstrings and inner thighs feeling a very big stretch there.
Yes.
Okay, so sometimes because your hamstrings are a little bit tighter, when we lengthen the bottom waist, it stretches them more. So if your hamstrings are already at their max, they're not going to allow any more coming from the ribs. Okay, it'll be a little bit of a process. Nicole, can you do the pose? And I just want to guide you through it and see you so I can answer you correctly. Okay, so she's going to step forwards with one foot. She's gonna wiggle that foot a little bit further forwards for me so she's super wide. Wider, yes. Good, arms out to the side, straight legs. Straighten your front leg. Straight, there we are. Reach towards the right. Can you see? So Nicole isn't allowing her back hip to come forwards. Nicole, put your left hand on your left hip. Yes, do that. Exactly. Just like that. Turn your hips to me. Now come down. Yes. Can you see?
I feel the difference now.
Put your left hand on your left hip again so everyone can see. So Nicole's going to roll that hip towards the floor. Yes, like that. Now put your other hand on your shin. Can you see how it's got her down? Could you see that there's a massive difference in the pose there? That left hip was stopping her coming down. Okay, so that's the first part. Now we got your hand on the rib underneath. Leave that left hip forwards. Now slide that rib away, and now it's giving you space. Thanks, Nicole. Great demonstration. So could all of you see what a big difference it makes by letting that back hip roll forwards? It got her into the pose. Okay, so it feels a little bit weird, and I know you've been told to do otherwise all this time, and the more we look at the functional anatomy of how our body moves, the more we refine the instructions that we give as yoga teachers. And you'll see it's popping up everywhere now. Everybody is evolving to the more natural hip thing. Okay. All right. One more thing I want to talk about, and then we'll do it on the left side. So from the side, talking more about the shoulder and head alignment now in your triangle pose. So when you come down, a lot of us leave the head forwards like this, okay? I want you to lean your head back a bit. So when you look down, your shoulder should be over your shin. Your head, your shoulder, this arm over the shin and not leaning forwards, okay? So you're going to lean the head back, lengthen the bottom ribs, lean back, lengthen the ribs, and then I'm going to turn my chest a little bit up towards the ceiling. Okay, so let's feel that a little bit more through the upper body now in triangle, because there's just so much to talk about on the left side. Let's flow from plank, downward facing dog, left foot forwards, and then open up to the side of your mat, straighten your legs, come up to standing. So allow your hips to be natural. Don't even think about it. Just don't try and square them. You'll feel now your right hip is forwards. If you put your hands on your hips, your right hip is forwards of the left hip. Exaggerate that a little bit, just so you can really feel it today. Like when you saw Nicole doing it, right? Now arms out to the side. Reach to the left. So this is quite a nice way to get in the pose. Just reach through your left arm. So it's encouraging you to keep the bottom side of your body long, right? Place your hand on the shin. Place your top hand first underneath the ribs, right hands to left ribs. Firstly, lean your head back, look down. Is your left shoulder over your left shin? Lean back. Good. Now, with your hands on your ribs, lengthen your bottom waist a bit. So it feels like your right bum cheek is sticking out. It's going to stretch more in your hamstrings and inner thighs. Heads up. Twist your ribs a little bit towards the side. So you're opening your chest. Top arm up to the ceiling. Triangle pose. That feel different? Let me have a look. Yes, beautiful, everyone. Now, last thing, your bottom shoulder, your left shoulder, wrap it back and down away from the ear. Yes, very nice. Well done, everyone. And slowly release, come up. They look pretty good. It might be feeling a little different from normal. Talk to me. How does it feel?
A lot better.
A lot better. Nice, yeah. Gary.
Before, keeping your hips square like this, like I could feel the strain in the knee and in the hamstring.
Yes.
So by relaxing into it, it just feels more natural.
Exactly what I want to hear. It feels natural. And that was a great pose you got into there, Gary. Looks awesome.
The way
it's also such a nicer stretch.
Gary, you were saying?
The way I had learned it before was how you highlighted it the last time, or like reaching forward.
Yeah, that reaching forwards is a lovely way to think of the length and the sides of the body in this pose. Micah, you have a question?
Yes, because I was often taught to actively rotate the hips before getting into the pose. So would you rather emphasize natural?
Natural. Emphasize natural. Emphasize natural. And you'll start to really see this when you all start teaching. Okay? And you'll be teaching beginners, and the more you allow them to naturally move their hips, they get into the pose as opposed to struggling. As you saw Nicole, as soon as she brought that hip forward, whoa, she bent all the way down and got her hand on her shin. So yes, this is something you would like to emphasize. And you know what? If you're teaching someone who's never done yoga before and they've never heard square your hips, they're never going to try and open their hips because it's unnatural. It's the unlearning, like I was saying last night, is unlearning this habit of squaring your hips. That's when you might need to cue it a little bit more. And just get them to feel it. I felt you go to feel it now for triangle, keeping your hips straight in triangle and try and bend, and you can't. But if you let your hips move, then you can fold from the hip. So that's a great way to feel the difference. Okie dokies. You feeling strain in your knee of the extended leg where my stance is wider. Is this normal? Okay, where are you in the screen? Hi. Can you do the pose for me, please? Can I highlight you? Spotlight. Okay, so let's have a little look-see. Be wide. Let's go into what it feels uncomfortable. So because it's just getting used to this wider stance, and we're feeling strain in the front leg or the back leg? Front leg. Okay, this is a normal thing. Come into the pose. Let's just have a look before we assume anything. Wow, nice and flexible. That's an impressive triangle. So what I want you to do is don't move your feet, but try and suction your feet together as if you're trying to slide your feet in. So now we've activated your inner thigh muscles. How does that feel? Better. Okay. So first of all, you could do a slightly narrower stance, or we can add in some strength, add in some muscle contraction to help your knees feel more stable in the pose. Talk to me. How did that feel? Better?
It felt a lot better. I think what happens is my knee kind of hyperextends to a slight amount. So it does feel a bit sore, but as soon as I move a little bit closer, it's like the weight is somehow more balanced and not sort of pushing deep into the knee.
Totally. So of course you can narrow your stance a little bit if that feels better for your knee. It's a perfectly valid reason. Absolutely. And then also because you are very flexible, as we all saw, add some strength to your pose. So instead of just hanging out there in your joints, draw your kneecaps up. Feel like you're pulling the mat inwards like this, so that you're contracting your muscles a little bit in the pose. I always say to you very flexy people, find the strength in the pose. Don't look for the stretch. Can you almost sweat that you are pulling into yourself and stabilizing around your joints rather than hanging out there? Okay. So I want you to play with that. Maybe narrowing your stance works for you perfectly fine. Or maybe you can keep the wide stance. I'm not saying you have to, but add some strength, add some muscle to it. Okay. And get back to me with what you conclude. Okay. Who's chatting?
Laura.
Hi, Dizzy.
I just want to find out with the knee that's straining, could you say to slightly like the micro bend the front knee?
Absolutely. You can totally do a little micro bend in the knee, and that would also be a great fix. She didn't look like she was hyperextending majorly, but a slight bend would also just sort it out like this. Totally right. Okay, one more pose before you have to go very quickly. Oh my gosh. Okay, last pose, side angle pose. Okay, it's kind of a blend between triangle and warrior two. I'm going to demonstrate it quickly, and then I'm going to get you guys into it quickly. So always plank, down dog, stepping forward. I'm going to come into the pose through a warrior two. Okay. From here, first option, elbow on the thigh. Okay. I'm not going to sink into my bottom shoulder. I'm going to press my elbow down and keep the shoulder away from the ear. And then you saw in the class today, I like to sweep this arm around from the floor and then overhead because it's easier for the shoulder. If your arm is up like this and then you take it overhead, it might feel more sticky. Okay, try. I like like to do it this way because it gets that beautiful side angle line. We're looking for that diagonal, okay? Option 2, fingertips on the floor. Again, I'm going to move into my side angle pose. Warrior 2 legs, all the same. Again, I'm going to lean my head back to open the chest. Turn my ribs up to the ceiling and reach through the top arm. Okay, so you're applying the legs of Warrior 2, 90-degree angles, foot alignment, external rotation of the front thigh, with the length of the side of the body in triangle pose. Okay, so I'm lengthening the sides of my body, leaning the head back and twisting the chest open. And then I want you to experiment taking that hand down to the floor and then in line with the ear. That downward sweep feels quite nice in the shoulder. Try it. See if it works for you. Let's go. Plank, down dog. Last pose with me for the day. And then you can do some delicious yin yoga with Taryn after this. Okay. Stepping forwards with your right foot, come into Warrior 2. Opening the arms out to the side. Check, is your knee stacked over your ankle? Are your shoulders stacked over your hips? Apply everything we've learned today. Is that front thigh externally rotating with natural hip positions? Now bring your right elbow onto your right thigh. First modified position. Don't sink into your shoulder. Your shoulder shouldn't shrug up to your ear. Push that elbow down. Now take your left hand, sweep it down towards the floor, and then in line with your ear. So you're finding that beautiful side diagonal shape. Good. Press down through the bottom shoulder a little bit more there, Andrea. Good. Keep lunging into your front knee, so knee stacked over ankle. Fully extend your top arm there, Lynn. Reach through those arms. Yes, gorgeous. Lean head back, twist chest open. Now, bring your right fingertips to the floor. Again, not a flat hand because it drops the chest. Be on your fingertips like little cupcake hands. Keep the lunge, keep your Warrior 2 legs. Push that right thigh out. Again, sweep your top hand down to the floor and then in line with the ear. Lean your head back. Are your shoulders stacked over your front thigh or are you leaning forwards? Lean back. Twist your chest open. Reach through your top arm, Micah. Fully extend that top arm and it's quite close to your ear. Stunning pose there, Chloe. Awesome. Bev, can you make your legs wider? Wider, wider, wider. Good. And then release. Let's come out the pose. You can come up through Warrior 2 and windmill your hands back to plank, downward facing dog. Let's feel it on the left quickly. Left side steps forwards, Warrior 2. Check. Knee stacks over ankle joint. Are your legs wide enough? Yes, Bev, that looks beautiful. Much better. Then elbow onto the thigh, modified side angle, right hand sweeps down to the floor, then in line with the ear. Keep your Warrior 2 legs. Lunge deeper, Roxy, yes. Then fingertips to the floor, full version. And again, sweep the top hand down and in line with the ear. Yes, Micah, that looks better with that top arm. Reach through the fingers and your top hand is pointing to the floor, yes? Michelle, lunge a bit deeper into your legs. Be lower. Yes. Lean your head back, twist your chest open. And Gary, can you think of lengthening your bottom waist like you did in triangle? Lengthen the underside of the body. More natural hips. Ah, now lengthen the bottom waist. Yes, better. Can you feel? And then come back up and wimble your arms back into plank, down dog, release. Well done, everyone. Give me a last bit of feedback here before I send you on your way for your break. I'm sure you're feeling a little bit buggered now.
Yeah. This pose for me is like very powerful in my hip and groin area.
Correct.
It's like,
it is. It is. It gets in there.
That's normal.
That's normal. It's normal. It's really working your inner thighs and groins big time.
Big time. Okay.
And that's the focus of this pose is to work the external rotation and the muscles. Yeah.
Super deep.
Super
so it's
deep.
like kind of feels the deepest out of those three for me.
Wow, interesting. Hey. Yes, and that's normal.
Okay.
That's normal. Yay, Natalie. It's all good. Yes, Belinda, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. A question. My neck hurts when I look up. So where, I mean, can I just leave my head looking down?
Yep, totally. So if your head's like this and then you turn your head up, it's a huge strain on your neck muscles. It's not comfortable at all. So I say just keep your head facing towards the side, or even just look down and relax your neck. There's no benefit to turning your head and looking up to the ceiling. It's often seen as the final drishti point in that pose to look into your top hand. But if it's causing unnecessary neck strain, it's not serving any purpose whatsoever. I find I just tend to look to the side in all of those poses. The looking up is tough for the neck. We have enough neck tension. Okay, everyone. I will see you tomorrow, and we will continue through our pose breakdown. I will just say put a little extra star on these last 3 poses, okay? You want to really feel confident and be able to demonstrate really punchy poses. Okay, well done. Enjoy your yin with Taryn. You can relax and unwind, and I'll see you tomorrow morning. Well done.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Chloe has a question.
Okay, I'm still here for you, Chloe.